Chapter 386. Infinite Boundless Mountains. Current Chief, the northern peak towering sky. Chu Yen, and his sacred artifact, the heaven-cleaving axe, had not come to the sea. After all, apart from him, all of the peak experts of the human race were gathered in the East Sea to battle the flame devils. At this time, if any abnormalities occurred in other places such as the Earth domain, the Eight Extremities world would inevitably be unable to respond in time. After the leaders of the great Holy Lands communicated with each other, Chu Yen became the final reserve team and oversaw the inland. If the battle on the sea underwent a drastic change, Chu Yen would either provide reinforcements or provide support so that he could make arrangements. Chu Yen himself had yet to attain the martial saint realm. While he possessed the sacred artifact, the heaven-cleaving axe, it would be extremely difficult for him to break through the grand formations of the sacred Sun Clan or the heavenly Thunder Hall all by himself. This way, the sacred Sun Clan and the heavenly Thunder Hall would also not have to worry about the safety of their own backyard. Leaning against the side of the vessel, Yen Zhaoge pondered for a moment before he suddenly asked Ahu, other than the Hall Lord Shunli, did anyone else of the Heavenly Thunder Hall come along? Ahu said, I heard that a few elders from the Hall have come to the East Sea. Yen Zhaoge looked thoughtful. Has anyone of the Heavenly Thunder Hall's younger generation come over? I've never heard of it. Ahu replied, even if they want to train, they'll probably only let them come after the situation has stabilized, right? Ahu looked at Yen Zhaoge. Xiezi is dead, and I've heard that Yen Shan is still in secluded cultivation cultivating in the sword with his left hand. Of the younger generation of the Heavenly Thunder Hall, the one they can bring out the most should be that Lin Zhou, right? Speaking of which, he has actually also reached the martial Grandmaster realm. In terms of age, he is even younger than the sacred Sun Clans Tang Yonghao and our Broad Creed Mountains brother Fei. Traveling alongside Yen Zhaoge in the extreme northern snowy plains, Ahu also met Lin Zhou once more. Yen Zhaoge took out Heaven Shocker, lightly plucking the bowstring as he felt the surging power of thunderbolts within. Pay attention. If this fellow appears on the East Sea, report it to me in time. Yes, young master. Ahu agreed without thinking too much. During the Great Tribulation of Broad Creed Mountain, Lin Tianfeng and the others had attempted to take advantage of the situation, even joining hands with the Sacred Sun Clan to use the Anti-Sun Grand Formation to shake Broad Creed Mountain's Clear Chi Grand Formation, nearly consigning Broad Creed Mountain to eternal damnation. Afterwards, Lin Tianfeng and the others had even personally attacked Broad Creed Mountain. In the end, they had all perished there. The enmity between the Heavenly Thunder Hall and Broad Creed Mountain was already as deep as the sea. On the extreme northern snowy plains, the two sides engaged in yet another battle. Those of the Heavenly Thunder Hall had attempted to assassinate Yen Zhaoge, but in the end, more than half of them had been killed or injured by the ice pith vein that Yen Zhaoge had triggered. Afterwards, when Yen Zhaoge had saved Shi Jun and Ing Yuzhen, Lin Zhou and Zheng Shuo of Black Nightmare Mountain had launched an attack together. In the end, Zheng Shuo had been slain, while Lin Zhou had lost Heaven Shocker, also having been blinded in one eye by Yen Zhaoge. If one were to say who wanted to kill Yen Zhaoge the most in this current world, Lin Zhou would definitely be ranked at the top. Currently, with the flame devils rampaging on the East Sea and the situation being complicated, Ahu felt that it was very normal for Yen Zhaoge to be on guard against the enemies causing trouble once more. However, compared to you, he is still far behind. Ahu said, instead, it is those martial grandmaster experts of the Sacred Sun Clan and the Sacred Sun Clan, especially the Essence Talisman martial grandmasters, who we have to guard against even more, young master. Yen Zhaoge smiled. Those people, needless to say, all have to raise their vigilance. He gazed into the distance and muttered to himself, and some people who don't look that eye-catching are easily overlooked. Who knows, they might become a great disaster. Ahu scratched his head. Retracting his gaze, Yen Zhaoge smiled. To some people, am I not such an existence? Ahu gave a simple and honest laugh. That's true. Rest easy, young master. I will pay attention. Accompanied by Yuan Jingfeng, Song Wuliang and Qinglin hurrying to the borders of the outer sea of Long Ocean City's region of sea, the Eight Extremities world finally gained a firm foothold. With Yuan Jingfeng, the painting saint, Huang Guanglie and Song Wuliang at their head, the human martial experts launched a wave of counterattacks, beating the invading flame devils into retreat. Unsurprisingly, the Jade Sea Pill Heart Sword became the focal point of the entire battlefield. Other than the extreme Een crown of unknown origins which had been coincidentally discovered, it had already been many years since a new sacred artifact had been forged in the Eight Extremities world. Now that the Jade Sea Pill Heart Sword had appeared out of nowhere, many people naturally felt complicated emotions. While the sword was currently pointed at the invading flame devils, its cold light still caused many to take note of it. With a sacred artifact in hand, Jade Sea City's strength would inevitably rise as a result, its significance being no less than Broad Creed Mountain's Yuan Jingfeng transcending mortality and entering sainthood, or the Sacred Sun Clan's Huang Guanglie successfully advancing, stepping into the second level of the martial saint realm. The Flame Devil's attacks having been thwarted, they began gradually retreating, while the peak experts of the human race began pursuing and reclaiming their lost territory. The main battlefield returned to the outer East Sea, with most of the flame devils in the inner East Sea having been slain. The human martial practitioners began unceasingly purging the invading flame devils. The younger generation of the various sacred grounds were allowed to participate in the battle. While they were not close to the main battlefield, the task of purging the remaining flame devils could still be undertaken, being suitable for tempering themselves. After the Jade Sea City martial practitioners had more or less stabilized the situation over at East Dragon Island, as the host, they became the main force of the purging. After sending Sikong Qing to Fu Enshu's place, Yan Zhaoge took his leave. While he had warned Sikong Qing not to act alone, lest she unnecessarily affect the overall situation, Yan Zhaoge had no intention of doing so. And whether it was Fu Enshu or Sikong Qing herself, neither of them felt that there was anything wrong with this. Countless facts had already sufficiently proved that when Yan Zhaoge acted on his own, not only did he not cause any trouble, he instead often brought him unimaginable gains. Yan Zhaoge's target was naturally not the remaining flame devils in the inner East Sea. Above the outer East Sea, Yan Zhaoge did not ride on a transportation tool like the wave-treading flying vessel, did not sit on Pan, and also did not tread on the waves as he traveled. Yan Zhaoge's entire person was currently completely submerged within the seawater. Ahu and Pan curiously followed beside him. After a long time, Yan Zhaoge's figure rose from within the water, his gaze still appraising their surroundings. Having been ravaged by the flame devils, the spiritual chi of the great sea here is very thin. Ahu asked curiously, "Young master, what do you want to do, Yan Zhaoge stroked his lower chin. "Oh, I want to give it a try." Ahu was a little confused. "How?" Yan Zhaoge laughed. "I want to find a great flame devil." Ahu instantly coughed intensely. Young master, a great flame devil is at the very least equivalent to a human martial practitioner of the 7th level of the martial grandmaster realm, the early essence talisman stage. While Yan Zhaoge had Heaven Shocker in hand, the devil-shattering ice talisman as well as the dark red ring which countered flame devils, having to deal with a great flame devil alone still left Ahu choking. Yan Zhaoge smiled. "I don't have to kill it or even have to clash with it. I just want to find a living great flame devil in its peak condition to verify some things, that's all." Ahu's face was bitter. "That's also very difficult, especially when you, young master, are very likely already a thorn in the side of the flame devils." Yan Zhaoge smiled, spreading his hands apart. "That's why I'm trying to think of a way. As the saying goes, there are always more ways than difficulties." Chapter 387. Because the battlefield was at the outer sea, most of the younger generation disciples participating in the battle originated from Jade Sea City, the Heavenly Thunder Hall and Turbid Wave Pavilion. The younger generation disciples of Broad Creed Mountain, the Sacred Sun Clan and Infinite Boundless Mountain were mostly like Yen Zhaoge and Sikong Qing. The disciples of the younger generation were mostly active in the inner sea as well, purging the roaming flame devils. They did not step into the outer sea where the main battlefield was. However, there were exceptions. Lightning flashed, and a flame devil was slain. The flame demon's body exploded, as if a rain of fire had fallen from the sky. Amidst the blazing rain of fire, a figure appeared. It was a one-eyed young man who emitted an icy aura. Heavenly Thunder Hall's direct lineage, the thunder-rumbling young master, Lin Zhou. Beside him were the other Heavenly Thunder Hall martial practitioners, all of their faces dark. Lin Zhou's hair was tied with a white veil, and it slid across his face, covering his left eye. His remaining right eye was currently gazing into the distant sea. After a moment, Lin Zhou retracted his gaze, swiveling his head to look at the other Heavenly Thunder Hall martial practitioners beside him as he said slowly, "I thank all of you for remembering my father's feelings, being willing to take this risk with me. Junior brother Lin, there's no need to say that. Avenging Master is our duty as disciples. However, you said earlier that you had a way to deal with those of Broad Creed Mountain." A middle-aged man beside Lin Zhou said in a heavy tone, "We also agreed to your choice of Yen Zhaoge as your target. However, we can't even find his figure now." Lin Zhou said lightly, "There's no need to look for him on purpose. If we look for him on purpose, it will make him vigilant instead. Although I still don't understand the reason, there are others who can help us find him." The middle-aged man asked, "Who?" A cold light flashed in Lin Zhou's right eye. "Flame Demon." Hearing this, the people around him fell into deep thought. "Yen Zhaoge," Lin Zhou muttered to himself, a myriad of thoughts flashing through his mind for a time as his past memories overlapped with his current situation, making it hard for him to remain calm. With the news of the invasion of the Flame Devils having spread, Jade Sea City's Lord Song Wuliang being in secluded cultivation, not having immediately rushed to the outer East Sea, Lin Zhou had already felt that something was wrong. Afterwards, the two Flame Devil Kings had moved stealthily together, raiding Jade Sea City's territory. Meanwhile, while Song Wuliang remained in Jade Sea City, he had yet to leave seclusion, seemingly having sunk into a state of death seclusion as he allowed the two Flame Devil Kings to wreak havoc, looking like they were about to tear down Jade Sea City. This allowed Lin Zhou to heave a sigh of relief in his heart because the situation seemed to have returned to the right track in his heart. But what happened next was completely unexpected. While they had not personally witnessed it, the news had already long since spread on the East Sea that Broad Creed Mountain's Yen Zhaoge had single-handedly led away a Flame Devil King, temporarily alleviating the dangerous situation that Jade Sea City was in. What caused others to sigh in admiration was that Yen Zhaoge had not sacrificed himself, instead successfully contending with the Flame Devil King as a spirit vessel martial grandmaster, finally retreating unscathed. While the Flame Devil King Jingzhong, who was equivalent to a second-level martial saint, had arrived, causing the Flame Devil King Qing Huang, who had been drawn away by Yen Zhaoge, to return to Jade Sea City, the miracle that Yen Zhaoge had accomplished was still sufficient to leave everyone sighing in admiration. At this moment, the situation had completely exceeded Lin Zhou's expectations. In the end, when the Blue Sea Pill Heart Sword was born, Lin Zhou was even a little numb. Jade Sea City's sacred artifact should still be lacking some materials, being unable to be forged. Lin Zhou pondered, "It is just that I don't know what materials they are. Could it be that some unforeseen event earlier resulted in the materials being gathered?" He shook his head. There was already no meaning in thinking about Jade Sea City's sacred artifact now. What Lin Zhou was more interested in was how Yen Zhaoge had drawn away the Flame Devil King Qing Huang. If that Yi Jing who has long since died, if he had come to this East Sea and met with the Flame Devils, he would have caused quite a bit of disturbance, drawing the attention of the Flame Devils. Light flickered in Lin Zhou's right eye. It is rumored that Yi Jing was killed by Yan Zhaoge. Could it be that something of his fell into Yan Zhaoge's hands? Lin Zhou leapt into the sea, the other Heavenly Thunder Hall martial practitioners exchanging looks as they followed behind him. They descended all the way to the bottom of the sea. Lin Zhou observed as he advanced, seemingly searching for something. A moment later, the underwater mountain range appeared before their eyes. Lin Zhou landed on the rocky mountain at the bottom of the sea, his sword light flickering as he pierced through the rock. Instantly, an extremely hot aura emanated from below. The middle-aged man beside Lin Zhou frowned. An underwater volcano? Senior apprentice brother Luo, this is not simply an underwater volcano, Lin Zhou said. Accurately speaking, this is the fire pith vein. Having been disturbed, it is about to gush out of the Earth's surface. Where we are now is precisely one of these nodes. The middle-aged man surnamed Luo was slightly shocked. Who disturbed the fire pith vein here? Could it be the flame devils? Lin Zhou said, I don't think it could be anyone else. Another skinny, yet fierce-looking man beside him said, Junior apprentice brother Lin, how do you know of this? Have you informed the seniors of the clan? Lin Zhou answered, I unintentionally discovered a similar situation earlier. At first, I also thought that it was simply an underwater volcano about to erupt, but afterwards discovered that there seemed to be some force intentionally concealing its traces, thus causing my suspicions to arise. I haven't had the time to inform the seniors of the clan. Senior apprentice brother Zhang, senior apprentice brother Luo, you two should quickly report this to Grand Master now. The expression of the skinny senior apprentice brother Zhang changed. We report it. This was clearly a share of the credit. Lin Zhou said calmly, the only thing I am considering now is killing Broad Creed Mountain's Yan Zhaoge. Senior apprentice brother Luo and senior apprentice brother Zhang had solemn expressions on their faces. What do you want to do? Lin Zhou said, the flame devils will very likely make use of the eruption of the underground fire pith vein to launch a counterattack. Actually, this should have been a decisive blow. In Lin Zhou's memories, Jade Sea City had been destroyed by the sneak attack of two Flame Devil Kings, while Song Wuliang and the other higher echelon experts of Jade Sea City, who had gone out to participate in the battle, Song Wuliang included, had all perished in the following battle. As a result, Jade Sea City had walked towards destruction, following in the footsteps of Black Nightmare Mountain. Now that they had Yuan Jingfeng who had stepped into the martial saint realm, and Song Wuliang also had the Jade Sea Pill Heart Sword, the strength of the Eight Extremities world participating in the battle had been even greater. The Flame Devils had instead lost a Flame Devil King, Qing Huang. With this, it would be very hard for the Flame Devils to obtain the battle results in Lin Zhou's memories. However, with the human experts who were currently unceasingly reclaiming their lost territory and launching a counterattack against the Flame Devils now suffering such a sudden attack, the situation inevitably became even more complicated. Lin Zhou said indifferently, if our clan seniors are careful, this battle might instead become a fortuitous encounter for our clan. As for us, we just have to wait here. While the Flame Devils seem to be retreating in defeat now, they are actually just waiting for a chance to counterattack. However, as long as we carefully follow the flow of the fire veins, even if the fire pith vein erupts here, we will still be able to ensure our safety. Next, we will observe. Wherever the Flame Devils congregate, we will go. Yan Zhaoge is likely to be there. Young Master Yu. Having just returned from receiving the news, Ahu stared wide-eyed and tongue-tied at the scene before him. Yan Zhaoge rushed before him, asking nonchalantly, What, is there a situation? Ahu said dazedly, Someone saw the Heavenly Thunder Hall's Lin Zhou leave the region of Sea of Long Ocean City, entering the outer East Sea. Not waiting for him to finish, Yan Zhaoge abruptly grabbed him, next descending deeper into the sea together. As the two descended, at virtually the same time, blazing fire evaporated the seawater, streaking past their heads. To be continued. Chapter 388. Accompanied by the descent of Yen Zhaoge and Ah Hu, the ferocious fire dragon instantly shot over their heads. If they had still been in their original position, they would have been burnt to a crisp by this. In the distance behind them, a massive four-legged, eight-armed being whose entire body was wreathed in flames was currently in hot pursuit. Actually, it was shockingly a great flame devil. A great flame devil whose strength was equivalent to that of an Essence Talisman Martial Grandmaster. While it was not as terrifying as a flame devil king, it was still extremely ferocious. Not lacking in speed or strength, it chased closely behind Yen Zhaoge and Ah Hu. If not for the seawater affecting flame devils, Yen Zhaoge would have long since been caught up to by it. In the distance, Pan Pan hurriedly came over as well. Grabbing Ah Hu with each hand, they swiftly dodged to the side as yet another roiling fire dragon assaulted them from behind. That great flame devil stomped on the ground, moving as though it was flying as it simultaneously brandished its 8 arms, seemingly throwing out one spear after another. The spears flew out of its hands, transforming into numerous fire dragons that viciously shot towards Yen Zhaoge's group. "Young master, you said that you wanted to find a great flame devil. Did you just walk straight up and infuriate the other party?" Ah Hu's voice was bitter to the point where it resembled a mouthful of Chinese medicine. Yen Zhaoge's expression was calm, not panicked in the slightest. As he traversed the seawater, he unceasingly felt the changes in the spiritual qi of the sea as well as the power fluctuations of the great flame devil behind him. Evading the attack of that great flame devil once more, Yen Zhaoge brought Ah Hu and Pan Pan along as he headed into the depths of the sea. "I've already made other preparations, but I want to understand more about flame devils, especially those at the level of great flame devils." Yen Zhaoge said nonchalantly, "It's about time now, we can go to the place that I prepared beforehand. Even if we can't kill him, we can at least throw him off." As he said this, Yen Zhaoge brought Ah Hu and Pan Pan along in a mad dash, that great flame devil letting out a series of roars as it pursued closely behind them. If we delay any longer, he will probably call his friends over, attracting even more flame devils. At that time, variables will inevitably arise. Saying thus, Yen Zhaoge swiveled his head to look at Ah Hu. "Just now, you said that Lin Zhou also left the inner East Sea, coming to the outer East Sea?" Ah Hu answered, "Someone saw him and some other Heavenly Thunder Hall martial practitioners leaving the region of Long Ocean City, heading east and entering the outer east." Yen Zhaoge pondered upon hearing his words. Why did he specially come to the outer East Sea? The outer East was currently the main battlefield of the great battle with the Flame Devils. If Lin Zhou had followed his Grand Master, the Lord of the Heavenly Thunder Hall, Shunli, it would have been fine. Moving alone was undoubtedly very dangerous. There were many great flame demons here. There were even quite a few flame demon kings. Just the shockwaves from a battle between martial sages were very terrifying. Yen Zhaoge was rather concerned by this abnormal situation. He could not help but begin carefully observing the environment of the outer East Sea that he was currently in. But before he could think about it, the sea before him suddenly began to shake violently. Violent seismic waves spread out from the bottom of the sea and spread throughout the entire outer East Sea in a short time. That terrifying momentum seemed to be even more shocking than the birth of the Blue Sea Pill-Heart Sword. The surface of the sea surged majestically with huge waves that reached the heavens. Undercurrents surged beneath the surface of the sea, forming countless waterspouts that wreaked havoc. The raging tsunami was just the beginning. As Yen Zhaoge lowered his head and gazed downwards, he discovered that the underwater volcanoes that had seemed normal earlier suddenly erupted in unison at this moment without any prior warning whatsoever. The natural underwater scenery that had originally been unobstructed had instead become the culprit of the tribulation at this moment. The dark depths of the sea turned crimson at this moment. Everywhere that Yen Zhaoge's gaze passed, it was all filled with dazzling red light. The underwater volcanoes erupted in unison, also being extremely violent and tyrannical as compared to normal. Numerous volcanoes directly broke apart, infinite flames surging out from within, causing the surrounding crust of the seabed to shatter along with it. The entire underwater world was completely transformed into a sea of flames at this moment. The violent, surging heat seemed limitless and without end as it rose unceasingly. The temperature of the seawater instantly rose as it evaporated. It was not just a single region of sea that had such a problem. Instead, it affected the entire outer East Sea at this moment, spreading outwards in all directions. It was often said that the heavens were incinerated and the sea was boiled. The scene before him truly had the momentum of the sea being boiled. Infinite waves dissipated, a great amount of hot steam rising on the surface of the sea, forming a dense mist that was all white. The great sea that should originally have been a world of water was blazing hot at this moment, as though it was about to completely transform into a sea of flames. Seeing this scene, Ahu and Pan Pan were shocked to the point of being unable to speak. Yen Zhaoge sucked in a deep breath. Even a great flame devil king might not be able to do something like this, turning the entire outer East Sea into a world of flames. The area of the outer East Sea, when compared to the mainland, was not something that a county or a region could compare to, instead being the size of half the heaven domain. Earth veins, only after the fire pith veins have been touched would such a great disturbance be caused. Dragging Ahu and Pan Pan along, Yen Zhaoge dodged a pillar of fire that shot into the sky. The flame devils want to turn the environment of the Great Sea, which is disadvantageous to them, into an environment like their own home ground, the flame devil world. What a great move! From the looks of it now, the entire outer East Sea had once been occupied by the flame devils, with the entire Eight Extremities world's defensive line having been forced to retreat to the region of Long Ocean City within the inner East Sea. A massive disaster had been buried, giving the flame devils the chance to do as they pleased in the outer East Sea, making arrangements. Now regaining his wits, Ahu cried out involuntarily. The old chief and the others were actually also deceived. Yen Zhaoge shook his head. On one hand they were deceived, but on the other, they also didn't expect it. While the flame devils have also entered the Eight Extremities world before, the flow of spiritual qi in the earth veins is constantly changing. Having entered this time, they could only fumble about from the beginning. Within such a short period of time, the flame devils were actually able to clearly grasp the flow of spiritual qi in the Eight Extremities world's earth veins, causing a change in the fire pith veins. After all, they came from a completely different world from here. This is also precisely what I am curious about. While I do not underestimate the strength of the flame devils, at the same time admitting that they are not without intelligence, this is really a little inconceivable. Unable to dive towards the depths of the sea now, Yen Zhaoge brought Ahu and Pan Pan along as he rapidly rose towards the surface of the sea. There is something or some unique technique that helped the flame devils to do this, also helping them to conceal the signs of the changes in the earth veins, instead deceiving us of the Eight Extremities world. A cold light flickered within Yen Zhaoge's eyes. Having been obstructed for a moment by the violent tsunami and undercurrents earlier, as the flame sea unceasingly devoured the Jade Sea, the great flame devil caught up once more. Yen Zhaoge could clearly feel that the other party's aura was even more brutal than before. In such an environment, the strength of the flame devils was clearly still recovering, even growing. It was not just this great flame devil before Yen Zhaoge. At this moment, on the outer East Sea, with the flame devil kings at their head, all the flame devils seemed to have broken free of their shackles as they began to unleash terrifying waves of counterattacks. Having just launched a counterattack on the outer East Sea, turning defeat into victory, the Eight Extremities world martial practitioners instantly suffered an even fiercer counterattack from the flame devils. To be continued. Chapter 389. The first to detect the changes in the earth veins of the outer East Sea were Yuan Zhengfeng and the others. The human martial saints who were currently locked in a fierce battle with the flame devil kings immediately felt the abnormalities in the depths of the great sea down below. Yuan Jingfeng and the others wanted to suppress the eruption of the fire pith vein, but Jing Zhong and the other flame devil kings had long since been waiting for this moment as they immediately launched a fierce counterattack. What caused the experts of the Eight Extremities world to feel troubled was that they could very directly feel the strength of the flame devils before them abruptly skyrocket. This was not because the flame devil king Jingzhong had previously been holding back. Instead, after the external environment had changed, the combat power of the flame devils had been boosted. Having originally been at a disadvantage, the unceasingly retreating flame devils immediately launched a counterattack. The offensive and defensive positions of the two sides changed once more. Fortunately, Yuan Jingfeng, Huang Guanglie and the others reacted in time, immediately stabilizing their footing, not allowing the flame devils to easily gain the upper hand. Other than the great battle between martial saint experts, on the outer East Sea, Fu Enshu and the other martial grandmaster experts were also locked in a fierce battle with the other flame devils. Not just the flame devil kings, all the flame devils were like fish in water amidst the changes in the environment. This was especially so for the great flame devils, their strength rising greatly, causing the martial practitioners of the Eight Extremities world to feel pressured. Essence Talisman martial grandmasters of sacred grounds basically all possessed high-grade spirit artifacts, their actual combat power often surpassing that of great flame devils of the same level. Before this, the great flame devils had to rely on their numerical advantage to make up for their lack of individual combat power. However, now that the fire pith vein at the bottom of the sea had erupted, the former blue sky and jade sea having transformed into a sea of flames, the great flame devils had all become extremely ferocious. Caught unawares, Fu Enshu and the others even suffered some losses, with more than one Essence Talisman martial grandmaster being injured by the sudden attacks of the flame devils. What caused the human martial experts to feel especially wary was that as time passed, amidst this environment where flowing fire abounded, the flame devils grew bolder and bolder as they fought. Yen Zhaoge had already noticed this problem at this moment. The great flame devil chasing after him seemed to not know exhaustion. The frequency at which this great flame devil threw out the fire spears was even more concentrated, also seeming to be going all out with each one. However, Yen Zhaoge could feel that not only had the other party's strength not been depleted, it had instead become even more vigorous. Yet, Yen Zhaoge could feel that not only had its strength not been depleted, it had instead become even more vigorous. Numerous fire lances were hurled consecutively, instantly transforming the surrounding heavens and earth into a cage of flames, wanting to seal off Yen Zhaoge's path of retreat along with the roiling ocean down below. Ahu grimaced in pain. "Young master, didn't you say that you had already made arrangements? Can it still be of use now?" The immortal crane wings on Yen Zhaoge's back expanded, the purplish-green light of thunder flickering within his right eye as streams of electricity stimulated his entire body, flowing to the wings on his back. As it flapped its wings, it raised its speed to the limit, narrowly dodging another fire spear. "I can't use it in this environment." Yen Zhaoge curled his lips. We still have to retrieve it. There will be other uses for it." As he spoke, he soared up into the sky and then suddenly dove down. Dodging the attack of the great flame devil behind him, the other party had already chased after him ferociously. Yen Zhaoge released his hands, the figures of Ah Hu and Pan Pan descending. Meanwhile, he himself turned around and drew his bow, Skyshocker roaring as three devil-shattering ice talismans howled out, transforming into golden light as they shot towards that great flame devil. Having shot out 3 arrows, Yen Zhaoge kept Heaven Shocker, the immortal crane wings on his back vibrating as he sped downwards, his hands grabbing onto the descending Ah Hu and Pan Pan once more. Struck by the devil-shattering ice talismans, that great flame devil halted in its tracks, but flames quickly surged madly about its entire body. The blazing hot aura of the surrounding heavens and earth also worked together, very quickly dispelling the golden frost. The great flame devil howled madly, chasing after Yen Zhaoge once more. Yen Zhaoge brought Ahu and Pan Pan along as he dove down towards the great sea once more. The sea before them was already completely boiling, the seawater roiling as countless massive bubbles surged up, before exploding consecutively. Just the explosion of these bubbles could form an extremely powerful destructive force, making it hard for people to approach them, let alone the seawater down below. Pan Pan let out a low roar, numerous streams of black water and numerous streams of white flames appearing out of nowhere, surrounding himself, Yen Zhaoge and Ahu. The white flames and black water temporarily separated the boiling sea from the blazing hot flames. Yen Zhaoge brought Ahu and Pan Pan along, returning to the depths of the sea. At this moment, the depths of the sea had already turned into a world of flames and lava, bright red and bright, filled with the aura of destruction. Gazing over, Yen Zhaoge saw a massive ball of ice fixed within the seawater, neither rising nor sinking. Amidst the boiling hot seawater, the surface of this ball of ice also emitted crackling sounds, numerous cracks appearing on it. While it had not truly shattered, if it continued to remain in such an environment, it would clearly still be destroyed by the sea of flames. Yen Zhaoge pushed on that massive ball of ice with his palm, his shadow shrinking pouch opening, like a snake swallowing an elephant, keeping that ball of ice within. With just this short pause, the great flame devil behind them had already caught up once more. Carefully observing the unceasingly spurting underground fire at the bottom of the sea, Yen Zhaoge decisively brought Ahu and Pan Pan along as he sped forward. This is also not the southern underground palace. Such a large-scale change in the earth veins that encompasses the entire outer East Sea, the eruption of underground fire, it would not be a single explosion. There should be many nodes, acting as a chain reaction. A cold light flickered within Yen Zhaoge's eyes. It would instead be calmer at the nodes where the earth veins are triggered as well as the chain reaction. Avoiding the underground fire spurting from the depths of the sea down below. Avoiding the attacks of the great flame devil behind them. Calculating the circulation pattern of the fire pith veins according to the surrounding environment. Sprinting madly all the way, Yen Zhaoge split his attention into three, his mind working to the maximum as he even vaguely felt a little dizzy. Finally, the temperature of the surrounding boiling sea suddenly dropped a little. Gazing over, Yen Zhaoge saw that on the crimson depths of the sea, an existence that resembled a path had shockingly appeared. Those were numerous underwater mountain ranges, seemingly protected by a formless power as they were not invaded by the surrounding sea of flames. Amidst the boundless sea, underground fire erupted everywhere at the bottom of the sea. Here, however, there was a region that was completely unaffected. Amidst the all-encompassing flowing fire, there seemed to be a long line that extended into the distance, its end not visible. Yen Zhaoge let out a long breath. It is indeed so. However, the great flame devil behind them caught up once more. The environment of the outer East Sea had already changed completely. Even in this peaceful world, its power was still boosted by the sea of flames. This great flame devil rushed madly on all fours, lunging towards Yen Zhaoge. Yen Zhaoge ignored him, instead determining his direction for a moment before continuing forward along the fire-free path. As he unceasingly calculated his position within his heart while fighting with that great flame devil behind him, after a long journey, Yen Zhaoge's speed suddenly slowed. Gazing over, he saw that a break had suddenly appeared in the underwater mountain range before him. While it was not like other places where underground fire erupted unceasingly, the mountain range here was broken, its center sunken downwards, forming a place that resembled a deep abyss. Within the deep abyss, the crimson light of fire emanated from within. To be continued. Chapter 390. Seeing that deep abyss from which the light of fire surged, Yen Zhaoge immediately sped over. The expression of the great flame devil behind him changed slightly as it let out an enraged roar that was hard to understand, its speed seemingly also abruptly increasing as it chased after Yen Zhaoge. "Young master!" Ahu's expression was extremely solemn as he suddenly shouted in a low voice. Yen Zhaoge's expression was calm. "Yeah, I felt it." In the distance there were several powerful auras currently heading in this direction. Their auras were violent and blazing. They were clearly flame demons. Amongst them, there was a powerful aura that was not inferior to that of the great flame devil behind them. It was clearly a great flame devil as well. Soon, several figures burning with flames appeared in the distant sea. The one in the lead spread his wings and flew high like a firebird. In the blink of an eye, he arrived near the abyss. Following closely behind this great flame devil were other flame devils. Seeing Yen Zhaoge, they simultaneously let out enraged roars that shocked the heavens. The great flame devil chasing behind Yen Zhaoge was also roaring furiously, seemingly conversing with one another. "Young master, as this great flame devil chases after us, it is also trying to establish contact with the other flame devils," Ahu said in a heavy voice. "As time drags on, there will be even more flame devils rushing over to reinforce and surround us." Yen Zhaoge did not speak, instead continuing resolutely charging towards the deep abyss of fiery light. As he advanced, he suddenly released the huge ice ball from his shadow-shrinking pouch. As he arrived at the very top of that deep abyss, Yen Zhaoge formed a fist seal with his right hand, before punching the ice ball. The ice ball suddenly shook and fell vertically, falling into the abyss that was flickering with fiery light. The flame devils before and behind him all let out enraged roars, shooting towards Yen Zhaoge at an extremely high speed. Yen Zhaoge ignored the two great flame devils, instead punching out towards that ice ball from the air once more. The ice ball that had yet to completely shatter in the sea of fire disintegrated at this moment. As the rays of light flickered, they weaved into icy blue runes that formed a huge formation. The 9 icicles stood at the edge of the formation. At this moment, they expanded and turned into 9 white pillars of light. They pierced through the deep sea and stabilized the formation. At the center of the formation was a large amount of golden ice crystals, all of which were the devil-shattering ice talismans that Yen Zhaoge had forged. The formation floated in the air before slowly descending into the abyss. At the bottom of the abyss, the magma and raging flames seemed to be sentient, sensing something. They continuously rose, no longer as calm as before, starting to gush upwards. That fiery bird-like great flame devil hesitated slightly, seemingly wanting to descend to the bottom of the abyss. Meanwhile, that 4-legged, 8-armed great flame devil that had been chasing behind Yen Zhaoge all along flew into a rage as it madly chased after Yen Zhaoge. He raised his arm, a fire spear shooting towards Yen Zhaoge once more. Yen Zhaoge and Ahu landed on Pan-Pan's back. Within the depths of the sea, Pan-Pan spread his claws wide, dashing madly all the way. Some of the other flame devils lunged towards the deep abyss down below, while others also headed over to obstruct Yen Zhaoge. The threat they posed to Yen Zhaoge was far from comparable to those 2 great flame devils. If not for the existence of those 2 great flame devils, Yen Zhaoge would be able to slowly take care of them. Now, however, with the great flame devil by the side, the threat of these flame devils attacking from all sides had also become immense. Yen Zhaoge didn't get entangled with them as he drew back Heaven Shocker, shooting out one devil-shattering ice talismans after another. Numerous streaks of golden light shot through the depths of the sea, condensing into a massive glacier which obstructed those flame devils. However, the fire spear thrown by the great flame devil behind him arrived before him in an instant, fast to the point that he couldn't evade in time. The violent, blazing aura caused the glacier created by the devil-shattering ice talismans to begin melting and breaking apart unceasingly, filled with an aura of destruction. Holding the bow with his left hand, Yen Zhaoge retrieved a small black incense burner with his right at lightning speed, facing that fire spear that was shooting over madly towards him. This great flame devil was huge, and the fire spear it threw was also a massive object, being several tens of feet long and over a meter in diameter. Yen Zhaoge brought the earth-devouring burner to block before him. It was rather mystical as the space before the earth-devouring burner seemed to distort, the massive fire spear shrinking rapidly as it was absorbed within the earth-devouring burner. Pan Pan made use of this chance to bring Yen Zhaoge along, speeding forward. Huh! Now, the purplish-green light of thunder abruptly flashed within Yen Zhaoge's right eye, a faint piercing pain emanating from within. Having been reminded by Yen Zhaoge, Pan Pan abruptly opened his mouth and roared, spitting out a streak of blazing white fire. The white fire arrow shot far into the distance, traversing the seawater unimpeded at first. Yet, it suddenly halted. The next moment, as though light had suddenly appeared within the boundless darkness, numerous streaks of green thunder suddenly appeared, a small amount of strange silvery white lightning mixed within. The green light of thunder shot into the skies, transforming into a heaven-obscuring barrier, enveloping the vicinity of the deep abyss. As the white fire arrow shot out by Pan Pan collided with the barrier of green thunder, it was instantly shattered by the light of thunder. Seeing this, Yen Zhaoge's pupils instantly dilated slightly. Heavenly Thunder Hall. Enveloped by the light of thunder, the figure of a one-eyed youth appeared. It was precisely Lin Zhou. Other than Lin Zhou, there were also other Heavenly Thunder Hall martial practitioners scattered in groups of 2s and 3s, each taking up a foothold. 3 great green flags formed a tripod, jointly supporting the massive divine sky-green thunder barrier before them. Before Lin Zhou and the others could speak, Yen Zhaoge directly let out a low roar, the light of thunder flickering within his right eye as a purple orb surfaced above his head. Eye of the Thunder Emperor Fragment. The terrifying and instant's thunder roared madly, venting its tyrannical power to the extreme. That instant's heaven-shocking, earth-shaking eruption caused even the great flame devils who had been chasing closely behind Yen Zhaoge earlier to feel a chill. The terrifying light of thunder that resembled a long river surged forward, directly vaporizing all the seawater in the vicinity, clearing out a path of vacuum. As an instant's thunder collided with the divine sky-green thunder barrier, a great green flag was directly shattered into smithereens. Where the great flag stood, a great amount of the rocks at the bottom of the sea collapsed, the scene of the heavens collapsing and the earth caving in. The Heavenly Thunder Hall martial practitioners in the vicinity of the great flag, that skinny senior apprentice brother Zhang included, all lost their footing as they fell downwards together. The all-encompassing green thunder was instantly ripped apart, a massive fissure in the blink of an eye. Yen Zhaoge brought Ah Hu and Pan Pan along, wanting to rush out of the fissure. However, Lin Zhou seemed to have long since been prepared for this, as he suddenly flashed another great green flag that was exactly the same as the first one. The 3 great flags reunited, the divine sky-green thunder barrier erected once more, blocking the path of Yen Zhaoge's group. Ah Hu let loose a torrent of abuse. Good ah, is your Heavenly Thunder Hall in cahoots with the Flame Devils? Lin Zhou stared fixedly at Yen Zhaoge with his right eye as he said coldly, Our clan is merely surrounding and obstructing the Flame Devils who are causing trouble. You just happen to be within their midst, it is just a coincidence. However, it is also not good for us to let you out. Otherwise, if the Flame Devils escape and cause destruction, none of us will be able to bear the responsibility for that. If there are any injuries, we can only say that it is regrettable. In a battle with the Flame Devils, there will inevitably be sacrifices. The broad-creed young master, Yen Zhaoge, has always been of noble character and unquestionable integrity, probably not caring about his own life. Here, on behalf of all the life forms of the 8 extremities world, I thank you for your efforts and sacrifices. Chapter 391. Looking at Lin Zhou, Yen Zhaoge raised his brows slightly. That silvery white light of thunder just now Lin Zhou's gaze was also focused on the eye of the Thunder Emperor fragment above Yen Zhaoge's head, having grown dim due to the depletion of an instant's thunder. It's clearly just a fragment of a saint artifact. Yet, with the two combined, it can already unleash such a powerful attack? Every time he heard news of Yan Zhaoge's Eye of the Thunder Emperor fragment displaying its godly might, Lin Zhou would feel depressed to the point of wanting to vomit blood. If not for him having long since been prepared, Yan Zhaoge would already have killed his way out of the encirclement just now. Yan Zhaoge's path forward was sealed by Lin Zhou's divine sky-green thunder barrier once more, not allowing him to continue trying to break through it as the roiling waves of heat had already assaulted him from behind once more. Seeing the power of Yan Zhaoge's Eye of the Thunder Emperor fragment weakening, that four-legged, eight-armed great flame devil attacked once more. Above their heads, the divine sky-green thunder barrier sealed off the surrounding space. Yan Zhaoge immediately brought Pan Pan and Ah Hu along as he rushed downwards, evading the attack of that great flame devil behind them. Due to the bombardment of an instant's thunder, a large portion of the underwater mountain range under Xiao Chen's feet had collapsed. It even caused shattered rocks to fly about and underground fire to spurt out. It was a chaotic scene, and light and shadows were blurry. Yan Zhaoge's group evaded the underground fire that spurted upwards as well as the mud and rocks that roiled everywhere, diving downwards. That great flame devil chased closely behind them, its violent flames destroying and clearing away everything in its way. Lin Zhou gazed downwards and saw nothing but a blur. However, he remained calm and collected. Apart from the area around the node, the rest of the area is filled with surging fire pith veins. It will be difficult for you to pass through with that earth-escaping artifact of yours. You're daydreaming if you think you can travel underground along the peaceful undersea mountains. Having descended into the depths of the collapsed mountain range, Yan Zhaoge very quickly discovered that the divine sky-green thunder barrier did not just envelop the area around and above the underwater rock. Just as he broke through the rock, layers of green lightning appeared and blocked his way. The divine firmament azure lightning barrier even covered the rocks below. Normally, it would not seem to be a problem, but once someone approached, it would immediately be activated. Numerous bolts of green thunder shot into the skies. Yan Zhaoge attempted to use his blood devil plate to break through them, yet discovered that this divine sky-green thunder barrier contained the essence of Lin Zhou's inverted yin-yang mother world within, causing it to flow endlessly. Although the blood devil plate, which was specialized in breaking barriers, could break it, it would take some time. Sadly, that great flame devil in hot pursuit behind him would not give Yan Zhaoge sufficient time. He sprinted madly on all fours, already arriving behind Yan Zhaoge once more, his 8 arms spreading wide as blazing flames swept about, resembling a net of fire as it enveloped towards Yan Zhaoge. The other flame devils lunged over as well. While Lin Zhou and the others were also human martial practitioners, as compared to them, Yan Zhaoge, who possessed the ring left behind by the Flame Devil Emperor, attracted the attention of all the Flame Devils more. While the Flame Devil King Qing Huang was dead, Yan Zhaoge's appearance as well as his martial concept and aura had already been targeted by the Flame Devils. But right at this moment, in another direction, in the fiery abyss between the underwater mountains, suddenly came a loud roar filled with shock and anger. That great flame devil in the form of a fire bird, which had dove into the deep abyss, was currently roaring madly. Other than fury and shock, its roar clearly also contained an aura of fear. While Yan Zhaoge and the others could not understand the language of the flame devils, the other flame devils outside the deep abyss clearly all understood the meaning of that great flame devil's roar. The expressions of all the flame devils changed greatly for a time. The next moment, the deep abyss of flames suddenly shook intensely. This underwater mountain range had originally been rather calm, but now, the fire pith veins buried deep underground seemed like they were also about to erupt. What was abnormal was that the unceasingly rampaging world of flames in the distance suddenly began to weaken. The all-encompassing lava showed signs of cooling, the underground fire also beginning to gradually extinguish. Although the entire outer East Sea was still engulfed by the earth fire, the violent underground fire pith in the sea region with this underwater mountain range as the center and this node as the center had instead calmed down. There was only that underwater mountain range at the center of the deep abyss, shaking intensely. A figure wanted to rush out of the deep abyss, his expression filled with indescribable panic. It was precisely that great flame devil in the form of a firebird. However, before he could rush out, a massive suction force seemed to emanate from within the deep abyss, dragging him downwards, wanting to drag him in once more. This great flame devil roared unceasingly, yet was unable to break free. As the others looked over in shock, they saw a terrifying vortex gradually surging out from within the deep abyss, ice and fire intermingling. The vortex itself floated upwards, yet sucking everything in its surroundings within, dragging it into the deep abyss. Trapped within, that great flame devil struggled unceasingly, yet was unable to do anything as it could only watch helplessly as it was devoured by the vortex. Seeing this, the other flame devils were all greatly shocked. Some wanted to save it, some wanted to flee far away, some launched attacks towards the vortex, some even more violent, falling into frenzy as they launched attacks towards Yan Zhaoge, Lin Zhou and the others. For a time, the situation in the vicinity of the underwater mountain range turned chaotic. That four-legged, eight-armed great flame devil suddenly swiveled its head, glaring furiously at Yan Zhaoge, the flames of fury within its eyes burning even brighter as it ignored everything else, chasing after him. The underwater mountain range gradually began to break apart, even more underground fire spurting out. The massive vortex that slowly arose from within the deep abyss expanded unceasingly into the surroundings. A moment ago, it had still been a rare safe region in a world of calamity. Now, it had become a terrifying hell on earth. Lin Zhou stared with his right eye, gazing downwards, trying to ascertain where Yan Zhaoge's figure was. Amidst the light of fire and water, Yan Zhaoge's figure was indistinct, the traces of a great flame devil behind him instead even more obvious. Standing beneath another great flag, that heavenly thunder hall martial practitioner surnamed Luo yelled, "Junior apprentice brother Lin, let's retreat as well. That vortex is too terrifying. If we don't retreat in time, we might also be swept along." Lin Zhou yelled in a heavy tone, "Steady. The divine sky green thunder barrier can help us by enough time." Along the mountain rock that was on the verge of shattering, a skinny figure crawled over to the vicinity of a great green flag. It was precisely that martial grandmaster surnamed Zhang of the Heavenly Thunder Hall who had been affected by Yan Zhaoge's an instant's thunder earlier. "Senior apprentice brother Luo, junior apprentice brother Lin, what exactly happened?" he yelled loudly. Senior apprentice brother Luo hurriedly let him in. "Are you all right?" Senior apprentice brother Zhang's face was filled with misfortune. "I wasn't directly struck by the thunder. While the great flag was destroyed, it also protected me." He looked with lingering fear at that rising vortex from within the deep abyss. "Let's retreat as well." Lin Zhou clenched his teeth. "Wait a little longer. As long as we block that Yan Zhaoge's path, the great flame devil will be able to slay him. Even if the great flame devil cannot kill him, he will definitely be sucked into that vortex before us." Gazing over carefully, he saw that four-legged, eight-armed great flame devil currently rising unceasingly. Above the great flame devil, Yan Zhaoge carried the shrunken Pan in his arms as he shot upwards in a straight line. Yan Zhaoge's gaze burned as it just happened to meet Lin Zhou's gaze. Behind him, the great flame devil followed closely behind. Looking a little further away, that massive vortex was expanding unceasingly, already sweeping over as well. To be continued. Chapter 392. Yan Zhaoge's momentum was like rushing thunder as he rushed before the divine sky green thunder barrier, grasping the earth-devouring burner as he pushed it towards the green light of thunder. Lin Zhou shouted, "Yan Zhao, sing!" As he shouted, Lin Zhou suddenly reached out and grabbed his face, removing the blindfold that had been covering his left eye. In the extreme northern snowy plains, Lin Zhou's left eye that had been blinded by Yan Zhaoge suddenly opened. His eye sockets were pitch black, and his eyeballs could not be seen. There was no luster at all, only pure and primitive darkness. When the surrounding light came into contact with Lin Zhou's left eye, it immediately disappeared as if it had been devoured. It was like the quietest and purest night. Yan Zhaoge instantly felt as though he was situated amidst endless darkness. There was no sound, no light, no sense of the existence of space, no sense of the flow of time, only a boundless great fear, the aura of a great calamity. The earth-devouring burner vibrated, and a strange suction force was emitted, completely swallowing this darkness. Only when the darkness was eliminated did light begin to shine. Boundless, surging, roaring, silvery white lightning. Yan Zhaoge raised his brows, no wonder. So it is one of the 9 heavenly immortal thunders alongside an instant's thunder, the thunder of eternal night. The thunder of eternal night turned the world into a primordial darkness, blocking out all sights and sounds as the world entered an eternal night. Then, the thunder of eternal night rang out, transforming into the purest and most primitive lightning. It broke through the darkness, tearing apart heaven and earth wherever it went. Wherever the lightning went, darkness would enshroud it, depriving and suppressing the target's sense of hearing, touch, vision, and other senses, making it seem as if the target had died in a deep sleep. Lin Zhou let out a muffled groan as blood flowed out of his left eye socket. A ray of silver-white light flew out of his left eye and hovered above his head. It was a light sword formed by silver-white lightning. Obstructed by Lin Zhou, Yan Zhaoge's footsteps halted slightly as the great flame devil behind him had already caught up. His 8 arms were raised in unison at this moment, 8 fire spears that were filled with the aura of destruction stabbing towards Yan Zhaoge. Yan Zhaoge's expression did not change as he roared, his second accompanying shadow shrinking pouch suddenly opening. From this shadow shrinking pouch, 2 pillars flew out, growing with the wind and instantly becoming extremely huge. A true dragon's body was sealed in an ice pillar, and a stone pillar was surrounded by dazzling lights. It was a magnificent sight. Yan Zhaoge controlled the pillar of the divine palace, suddenly releasing its suppression on the ice pillar. Although the true dragon's body sealed in the ice pillar was lifeless, its spirituality had yet to dissipate, and it immediately became restless. As the great flame devil's fire spear stabbed over, its blazing, destructive aura immediately stimulated the remains of this ice dragon. As the ice pillar trembled, it naturally reacted to the stress. Waves of dragon might spread from it, and the frozen ice dragon inside seemed to come to life. Ice and fire collided intensely at this moment. That great flame devil's attack was blocked, while the icicle was sent flying backward. However, Yan Zhaoge made use of this chance to control the pillar of the divine palace, viciously colliding towards that great flame devil. Runes lit up in the sky, interweaving in the air and transforming into boundless light, causing the divine palace's pillar to seem much larger. Amidst the rumbling, that 4-legged, 8-armed great flame devil was knocked dizzy as it tumbled backwards. The pillar of the divine palace was also knocked flying backwards. Yan Zhaoge extended his hand to support it once more before pressing it down, suppressing the corpse of the ice dragon, which had been restless earlier. Having been struck by the great flame devil, the corpse of the ice dragon also fell silent for a moment, just happening to be suppressed by Yan Zhaoge with the pillar of the divine palace once more. Yan Zhaoge opened his shadow shrinking pouch. The pillar of the divine palace, suppressing the true dragon's body, retracted. However, an even greater danger was already right before their eyes. That vortex which had arisen from the deep abyss expanded unceasingly, devouring the surrounding space as its periphery had already caught up to Yan Zhaoge. That great flame devil which had been knocked into retreat by the pillar of the divine palace let out a shocked and enraged howl, half its body already having been sucked in by the vortex. The vortex swept outwards unceasingly, sweeping and devouring everything that dared to stand in its way. It was now just a foot away from Yen Zhaoge. Standing within the divine sky-green thunder barrier, Lin Zhou clutched his bleeding left eye with one hand, pointing out towards Yen Zhaoge with the index and 2 fingers of his other hand like a sword. The eternal night thunder sword circling above his head chopped towards Yen Zhaoge. While that terrifying vortex was already right before his eyes, Lin Zhou clenched his teeth, not retreating at all as he glared fixedly at Yen Zhaoge with his right eye. Yen Zhaoge, either you die today, or I die. Lin Zhou's face was deathly pale, but his expression was brutal. If you can leave the East Sea alive this time, I will drink up all the seawater here. That strange silvery light of thunder of the eternal night thunder sword instantly transformed into darkness, obscuring the heavens and obscuring the sun, wanting to devour Yen Zhaoge. With the divine sky-green thunder barrier blocking his path and the thunder of eternal night intercepting him, Lin Zhou went all out, wanting to directly knock Yen Zhaoge into that terrifying vortex which devoured everything before him. That great flame devil whose body was already halfway within the vortex also roared now, a fire spear appearing within its hands as it hurled it towards Yen Zhaoge. This fatal blow was aimed at dragging Yen Zhaoge down with him. Yen Zhaoge's body spun, the earth-devouring burner within his hands meeting the fire spear, blocking that terrifying destructive power. At the same time, Yen Zhaoge flicked his right sleeve, a dark green bamboo branch of 3 segments long appearing within his palm. The bamboo branch shot out, light everywhere as it struck the incoming thunder of eternal night. The darkness retreated, the silver light exploding as the eternal night thunder sword was sent flying backwards by Yen Zhaoge. Lin Zhou let out a muffled groan, blood leaking from the corner of his mouth, but he stood firmly, stabilizing the divine sky-green thunder barrier as he blocked the incoming Yen Zhaoge. That terrifying vortex was already about to come into contact with Yen Zhaoge's body. Before Yen Zhaoge, there were still numerous barriers of green thunder blocking his path. The periphery of the vortex was already in the vicinity of the green thunder. That senior apprentice brother Luo called out, "Let's retreat as well." Lin Zhou roared, "Wait a little longer." Besides senior apprentice brother Luo, senior apprentice brother Zhang also called out, "We can't wait any longer." Lin Zhou was greatly enraged. "I said wait a little longer, wait. What are you doing?" All the Heavenly Thunder Hall martial practitioners were dazed like wooden chickens. Right in front of them, their senior apprentice brother Zhang formed his hands into claws, grabbing senior apprentice brother Luo's neck before twisting it forcefully. Senior apprentice brother Luo let out a great roar of despair, his entire body surging with aura chi of thunder. However, senior apprentice brother Zhang similarly surged with aura chi, forming a terrifying black storm with purple light flickering within. A ferocious black tiger appeared behind senior apprentice brother Luo's back, letting out a heaven-shocking roar as it twisted the neck of that Heavenly Thunder Hall martial practitioner surnamed Luo, his head being separated from his body. Lin Zhou was rendered wide-eyed and tongue-tied. Black Nightmare Divine Wind? Ghost Tiger Divine Claw? Senior apprentice brother Zhang laughed loudly, still looking thin and capable. "It is precisely your Lord Tiger Ah." Amidst his loud laughter, his movements did not cease as he consecutively struck out, breaking that great green flag which had originally been supported by senior apprentice brother Luo. The divine sky green thunder barrier instantly began to collapse. Sitting on Pan Pan, Yen Zhaoge shot forward, looking coldly at Lin Zhou. "Drink all the water of the East Sea? You may begin now." To be continued. Chapter 393. Having come from a sacred ground, having seen many things, after their initial shock and incomprehension, the Heavenly Thunder Hall martial practitioners had already reacted. The rare treasure imitation killing jade, after the user had killed a target within a certain period of time, would be able to use their aura chi to imitate the target they had killed. As long as they did not fight, even the breathing in and out of their inner chi would be completely the same as the target they were imitating. Ahu's understanding of that heavenly Thunder Hall martial grandmaster surnamed Zhang was limited, not being clear on his habits, thus being unable to imitate him perfectly. However, amidst the chaotic and tense situation just now, he had been careful not to reveal any traces, successfully hiding it from the heavenly Thunder Hall martial practitioners within a short period of time. The risk involved was self-evident. If he had been exposed in the slightest, he would have been surrounded and killed. However, with high risk came high reward. At the final moment, when everyone's attention had been highly focused on Yen Zhaoge and that terrifying vortex, Ahu had made use of the chance to suddenly erupt. As the divine sky green thunder barrier broke, Yen Zhaoge instantly surged forth like a ferocious tiger descending a mountain. Greatly enraged, some heavenly Thunder Hall martial practitioners rushed towards Ahu. Within the crowd, Ahu was instantly surrounded. However, after entering the divine sky green thunder barrier, Yen Zhaoge leapt off Pan's body, a transparent glazed plate appearing in his hands. The glazed plate shone with a blood-red light. As Yen Zhaoge opened it, numerous streaks of blood-red light instantly flew out. It was precisely the rare treasure that specialized in breaking through all kinds of barriers, the Blood Devil Plate. Being within the barrier this time, the Blood Devil Plate displayed its effects, numerous streaks of blood-red light dancing about, suffusing the divine sky green thunder barrier that had cracks appearing on it. Yen Zhaoge punched out with his hands, one fist, one palm, both striking forward simultaneously. As his orochi shook, the blood-red light abruptly surged. Within the damaged barrier of green thunder, numerous blood-red lines intersected, resembling veins. The remaining two green flags were instantly covered in a layer of blood-red, and their surfaces were covered with dense blood-red lines. Behind them, that terrifying vortex was still expanding unceasingly. The edges of the vortex had already come into contact with the divine sky green thunder barrier, the damaged barrier instantly on the verge of collapse. The eternal night thunder sword above Lin Zhou's head shone with a silvery white light. At this moment the light vanished, turning into darkness, resembling the boundless night sky. Staring at Yen Zhaoge, he roared furiously, turning and leaving under the envelopment of the night sky. Yen Zhaoge looked coldly at Lin Zhou as Pan returned to his side after receiving Ahu. Sitting on Pan's back, with just a thought from Yen Zhaoge, Pan spread out his claws, shooting forward madly. Behind him, seeing the vortex closing in on them, the heavenly Thunder Hall martial practitioners also struggled, wanting to flee. Not turning back, Yen Zhaoge punched out towards the divine sky green thunder barrier. Inside the enchantment, the blood-red threads that filled the sky shook at the same time, and the two green flags exploded and shattered. The rolling green lightning exploded in succession, and the entire enchantment completely collapsed. The violent thunderbolts instantly engulfed the group of heavenly Thunder Hall martial practitioners, the frenzied explosive force it stirred up even seemingly obstructing that vortex for an instant. The next moment the vortex continued to expand. Those heavenly Thunder Hall martial practitioners who had not perished in the explosion of the barrier were obstructed by the light of thunder, their footsteps slowing as they were swept along by the vortex as well, being dragged within. Sitting on Pan's back, Yen Zhaoge and Ahu instantly left. The underwater mountain range before them was still shaking intensely, underground fire erupting into the air from time to time, resembling hell on earth. Yen Zhaoge gazed at a dark shadow up ahead, that dark shadow flickering amidst the flickering light of fire, zigzagging as it fled unceasingly. Heaven's shocker that erupted with purple thunderbolts returned to Yen Zhaoge's hands once more. As he drew the bow, a streak of golden light shot out. Devil-shattering ice talismans had a suppressive effect on flame devils, but when used to beat people, the effect was similarly not bad. Where the golden light passed, the entire ocean was instantly sealed in ice. Ferocious silver-white lightning burst out of the shadow, shattering the surrounding glaciers. However, with just this delay, Yen Zhaoge had already swiftly caught up. A blazing, violent aura emanated from the nearby deep sea as more flame devils approached, surrounding Yen Zhaoge and the others. "I'll leave it to you." This time, Yen Zhaoge ignored the flame devils as he leapt down from Pan Pan's back, his sword light resembling a dragon as it split apart the seawater, chopping straight towards Lin Zhou. Within that dim darkness, Lin Zhou roared in rage, silvery white thunderbolts erupting from the darkness, resembling the creation of the heavens and the earth as they shot towards Yen Zhaoge. Yen Zhaoge merged with his sword, resembling the incarnation of a green dragon as he descended from the heavens. His figure spun in mid-air, numerous green sword lights obscuring the heavens and covering the earth as they shot out in all directions, resembling a green dragon shaking its armor. The green sword light and the white light of thunder clashed unceasingly in mid-air, being extinguished one after another. However, that surging dragon might, that blazing sword intent, still enveloped Lin Zhou. It was fine if Lin Zhou met him head-on, but if he dared to turn and flee, drawn in by his aura, Yen Zhaoge's sword would directly nail him to death at the bottom of the sea. "Kill!" Lin Zhou's face was pale as paper, but a resolute light surged within his soul right eye. He reached out and grabbed, the white sword of light above his head landing within his hands, transforming into an actual sword. The blade was jet black, white light circulating on its edge. A saber appeared within Lin Zhou's other hand. The aura chi of his entire body surged madly, condensing on the saber as he hacked out consecutively. Set off by the terrifying chi of thunder and lightning, Lin Zhou's figure seemed to have suddenly grown much taller, resembling the descent of a Thunder King. One of the heavenly Thunder Hall's two supreme martial arts, the 9 rotating Thunder King saber. On the other side, even if Lin Zhou didn't draw on his aura chi, the power of the Eternal Night Thunder Sword was still much stronger than when he himself wielded the 9 rotating Thunder King saber. While it wasn't a combination of the Divine Sky Lightning Mother Sword and the 9 rotating Thunder King saber, as Lin Zhou brandished both sword and saber, he still brazenly executed a secret martial art of the Heavenly Thunder Hall, thunder and lightning intermingling. Beneath the intermingling of purplish-green thunder and silvery white lightning, countless snakes of electricity slithered about within the sea, terrifying beyond compare. A sword that contains the thunder of eternal night, its quality is not bad, Yen Zhaoge said calmly, a dark green bamboo branch that flickered with a purple light appearing within his left hand. As the bamboo branch moved, it blocked Lin Zhou's eternal night thunder sword. Meanwhile, the jade dragon sword in Yen Zhaoge's right hand flickered, directly shattering Lin Zhou's saberlight. "As for you, you're still far from it." Lin Zhou roared furiously, the shattered saber light abruptly changing directions, chopping towards Yen Zhaoge with an even more ferocious momentum. This was the essence of the 9 Revolutions Thunder King's saber, and Lin Zhou had already understood it. However, Yen Zhaoge's sword aura resembled a torrent that surged to the heavens, unstoppable as it advanced forward, easily shattering the second wave of saberlight. "You seem to have forgotten that the last time we met was when you were a mid-Xiantian martial scholar and I was an early Xiantian martial scholar." Not waiting for Lin Zhou to unleash his third transformation saberlight, Yen Zhaoge's sword had already arrived before him, directly shattering the spirit artifact saber in his hands. Yen Zhaoge's sword did not cease in the slightest as it surged forward, resembling Mount Tai pressing down on an egg. Lin Zhou's eyes seemed on the verge of imploding as he watched Yen Zhaoge shatter half his body with a single sword. "Right now, you're an early-stage Spirit Vessel Grandmaster, and I'm a late-stage Spirit Vessel Grandmaster. If we only rely on our own cultivation," Yen Zhaoge's dark green bamboo branch whipped out once more, sending Lin Zhou's Eternal Night Thunder Sword flying as well. Then, he kept the Jade Dragon sword with his right hand and slammed down with his palm. The world before Lin Zhou's eyes spun, as if the sky was collapsing. "Now, if we only rely on our own martial arts cultivation, I can easily beat 100 of you." To be continued. Chapter 394. Within the deep sea, the underwater mountain range shook, rocks shattering, underground fire erupting, the scene of the end of the world. Standing within the seawater, Yen Zhaoge's palm descended, resembling the collapse of the heavens. The dark whirlpools within the surrounding seawater all became still, completely locked in place. The water did not condense into ice, but seemed to have turned into a solid state, unable to cause any ripples at all. Beneath Yen Zhaoge's palm, Lin Zhou's originally heavily injured, bloodied body instantly erupted with even more blood mist, completely breaking apart. Fresh blood shot out from Lin Zhou's left eye that had long since been blind. He struggled, his right eye still glaring furiously at Yen Zhaoge, filled with hatred and unwillingness. Looking calmly at Lin Zhou, Yen Zhaoge said mildly, "What, are you thinking about what you would definitely do if you could be reborn once more?" Lin Zhou's right eye abruptly dilated as he stared fixedly at Yen Zhaoge. Seeing his expression, Yen Zhaoge nodded. "Originally, I couldn't be completely sure, just that through the analysis of various signs, I felt that you had been reborn once more. Looking at your expression now, it should really be so." Lin Zhou's vision was already gradually turning blurry, but his mind, due to the final radiance of the setting sun, became exceptionally clear. "You are indeed different from me, but also different from others." Looking at Lin Zhou, Yen Zhaoge shook his head. "I wonder how long you lived for in your previous life? Did you experience the invasion of the Flame Devils this time? If you did, having some understanding of the Flame Devils' sudden assault on Jade Sea City, as well as them activating the Fire Pith Vein here in the Outer East Sea, then trying to provide this information to the others of the Eight Extremities world, against the invasion of the Flame Devils this time, everyone would be much more relaxed. You would also obtain immense fame and merit. Not only would your heavenly Thunder Hall reward you, others would also be grateful for your contributions." Yen Zhaoge said calmly, "Didn't you do very well that time at Clear Concealed Lake?" While it was known to the outside world that before the incident at Clear Concealed Lake, the Heavenly Thunder Hall digging out their decimating abyss's hidden pawn was the merit of Lin Zhou's father, Lin Tianfeng. However, Yen Zhaoge guessed that Lin Tianfeng should have benefited from Lin Zhou. Although the infiltration of the decimating abyss is too strong, causing the information to be leaked and the results to be greatly discounted, there's nothing wrong with the train of thought. You truly surpassing Yen Shan, being appointed as the number one of the younger generation by your Heavenly Thunder Hall, should also stem from that matter, and not from your cultivation base surpassing Yen Shan's. That was because they would be able to interfere with the world's situation. They would no longer be ordinary disciples of the younger generation, young geniuses. Lin Zhou snorted coldly, "Don't mention Clear Concealed Lake. If you really want to talk about it, you should have died in Clear Concealed Lake." In the Battle of Clear Concealed Lake, due to the leak of the news, the decimating abyss had successfully counterattacked. However, in the end, the core of the devilish domain Grand Formation had been destroyed by the martial scholar Yen Zhaoge at the time. That battle had also been the stage on which Yen Zhaoge had risen to prominence in the entire Eight Extremities world. After that, there was no one under the heavens who did not know of him. Regarding Lin Zhou's words that he should have died at Clear Concealed Lake, Yen Zhaoge smiled nonchalantly. Lin Zhou was even more enraged. "So what if I painstakingly schemed? My father did not die at the hands of the 9 underworld evil devils, but still perished at your Broad Creed Mountain's hands." Yen Zhaoge understood. "So, from then on, your mentality completely changed?" he said calmly, "while your cultivation base continued to grow unceasingly, while you also obtained many fortuitous encounters and treasures, even obtaining the thunder of eternal night, you became less confident." Yen Zhaoge shook his head rather speechlessly. The continuous twists and turns of the great battle of Broad Creed Mountain, with his father Lin Tianfeng having perished at Broad Creed Mountain, had caused the gates of darkness within Lin Zhou's heart to open, the seeds of madness beginning to sprout. In the extreme northern snowy plains, having been defeated by Yen Zhaoge once more in the struggle for the old residence of the glacial dragon Martial Saint, having lost his father's relic, Heaven Shocker, and having been blinded in one of his eyes, Lin Zhou's bottom line had been completely broken through. First, he had firmly believed that he was the main character of this era. After suffering consecutive setbacks, he had begun to doubt himself. While it seemed like he was still making use of the advantage of having been reborn, of knowing much information in advance, he had actually gone from actively fighting for it to passively waiting. Staring fixedly at Yan Zhaoge, Lin Zhou felt his spirit gradually dissipating, his life finally about to leave him. His voice was low. At this point, there is no benefit in saying more. If I can have another chance to be reborn, I will definitely fight with you once more. 2 lifetimes, both ultimately filled with regrets. I am not resigned to it. Lin Zhou used the last of his strength to glare furiously at Yan Zhaoge. Don't be complacent, Yan Zhaoge. You have only lived for 1 or 2 years longer than me. Yan Zhaoge raised his brows, looking at Lin Zhou. Lin Zhou laughed loudly. Right, you don't know, you all don't know, no one knows, only I know. Ignorance is bliss, able to let you live more stable days. Yan Zhaoge, I'll be waiting for you down below. Looking at Lin Zhou, Yan Zhaoge suddenly laughed. Right, I don't know, but as I stand here, you know that you will be lying here forever. You say that you know, what's the difference between not knowing? Lin Zhou's laughter abruptly stopped, as though someone had grabbed his throat, leaving a trembling final sound. Whether you can redo it once more, I don't know, but now you can go in peace. Yan Zhaoge said indifferently, didn't you notice that after Clear Concealed Lake, the general trend of the world, with or without you, actually didn't make much of a difference? Perhaps this world has left you with regrets, but with you gone, there is nothing for this world to regret. Yan Zhaoge's palm descended, looking at it from a certain perspective. If the you at Clear Concealed Lake had perished, to the current 8 extremities world, there really might have been some possibility that it would have been a loss. However, you yourself turned the matter of importance into something inconsequential. Lin Zhou died with remaining grievances, his body completely exploding into a mist of blood. A faint silhouette of a soul also dissipated into thin air. His soul dispersed, doomed for all eternity. Yan Zhaoge shrugged. The third one is no different from slapping others to death. He extended his hand, the eternal night thunder sword floating within the sea that flickered with the white light of thunder drifting over towards him. The eternal night thunder sword shook, wanting to transform into layers of darkness, resisting Yan Zhaoge's grasp. Yan Zhaoge placed the dark green bamboo branch on it, the shaking of the eternal night thunder sword calming somewhat. However, that pervading darkness still enveloped over towards Yan Zhaoge, wanting to devour him. Yan Zhaoge's expression was calm, a chaotic qi mass seemingly forming within every single acupoint of his body, absorbing this darkness in great amounts, yet no silvery white light of thunder was seen to be emitted. Within Yan Zhaoge's mind, however, lightning lit up, thunder roaring. Having had the experience of refining the fragment of the eye of the Thunder Emperor, Yan Zhaoge's current refinement of this unique treasure, the Eternal Night Thunder Sword, was much smoother. This thing is more like a crystallization of a strand of thunder of eternal night, having been infused with a strand of sword intent. Yan Zhaoge's gaze lit up slightly. This thing is not bad, perhaps it can be refined into one of the 9 heavenly immortal thunders, the thunder of eternal night. Chapter 395. The difficulty of refining the eternal night thunder sword was greater than Yan Zhaoge had expected. However, this instead caused Yan Zhaoge to feel rather joyful, as he sensed that this treasure before him was even more powerful than he had expected. Due to the limitations of his cultivation base, Lin Zhou was unable to wield its full power. The Eternal Night Thunder Sword also placed a huge burden on Lin Zhou. Each time he wielded it, activating the thunder of eternal night, Lin Zhou's own body would be affected instead. Of course, this sword also brought Lin Zhou immense benefit. Just like how Yen Zhaoge had stored the Eye of the Thunder Emperor fragment in his right eye, Lin Zhou was also nourishing the sword with his own body. As it nourished and refined the Eternal Night Thunder Sword, the sword intent of thunder was also imperceptibly nourishing the qi and blood of Lin Zhou's fleshly body. Darkness did not mean evil. Pure darkness also had the effect of nurturing life, like a baby in its mother's womb. When used against enemies, the thunder of eternal night was extremely ferocious, the darkness suppressing and robbing the opponent of their sensory abilities. When the silvery white light of thunder exploded, it could destroy all things. However, when used to nourish a martial practitioner's body, the effects were extremely good, even better than the Eye of the Thunder Emperor fragment that produced an instant's thunder. Carefully analyzing the aura contained within the Eternal Night Thunder Sword, Yen Zhaoge could not help but nod repeatedly. While it is ranked 9th amongst the 9 heavenly immortal thunders, the weakest in terms of pure destructive power and inferior to the 6th ranked and instant's thunder, it still has its own unique aspects. While the Eye of the Thunder Emperor had been a sacred artifact in the past, it had been broken at the end of the day. Yen Zhaoge currently only possessed a fragment. The concept of an instant's thunder within was violent, yet incomplete. Instead, while this Eternal Night Thunder Sword before him could not be compared to the Eye of the Thunder Emperor in terms of quality, the essence condensed from the thunder of eternal night within was comparatively complete. Quietly analyzing its profundities, Yen Zhaoge was gradually able to come into contact with some of the unique aspects of this 9 heavenly immortal thunders. Other than the aura of the thunder of eternal night, carefully analyzing the sword intent condensed from this immortal thunder, Yen Zhaoge could also feel that it was rather unusual. This sword intent is capable of stirring up thunder in silence. It's quite compatible with the thunder of eternal night. No wonder it's so compatible. After refining the Eternal Night Thunder Sword, Yen Zhaoge reined in his thoughts of letting things go as he swept his gaze over the area, seeing that Ahu and Pan Pan were still clashing with some flame devils. Flashing the dark red ring, the aura of the Flame Demon Emperor within it immediately attracted the attention of all the flame demons present, causing their bodies to stiffen and tremble at the same time. There were no great flame devils present. Flame devils with lower cultivation bases were all affected by this ring to varying degrees. Yen Zhaoge did not waste time on words as Heaven Shocker appeared once more, arrows shooting out in rapid succession as a devil-shattering ice talisman was shot out. The golden light intertwined with purple lightning exploded in the deep sea, and a surging chill instantly swept out, freezing a large amount of seawater. Although the surrounding environment was surging with underground fire and the seawater was boiling, the temperature was also dropping rapidly. Trapped by the glacier, the flame demon's power was suppressed and its movements were restricted. Yen Zhaoge's sword resembled a dragon as he joined hands with Ahu and Pan Pan to go on a killing spree, breaking out of the encirclement. Having arrived in the distance, looking back, Yen Zhaoge saw that the underwater mountain range with the deep abyss of flames as its center had already been completely obscured by a massive vortex. The vortex expanded outward to a certain extent before finally stopping. However, the ice and fire continued to interweave and spin, forming a terrifying vortex that showed no signs of slowing down. It lasted for a long time. The reefs of the underwater mountain range in the vicinity of the vortex broke apart unceasingly, a great amount of underground fire spurting out unceasingly, just like the entire outer East Sea earlier. The seawater was boiled, a great amount of steam rising. Gazing into the distance, it was all white. Instead, with this place as its center, the fire pith veins that had been wreaking havoc in the surrounding region of sea earlier had now settled, regaining their former calm. The situation of the two, as compared to before, was exactly reversed. However, this was only in the vicinity of this region of sea. Continuing into the distance, the other areas of the outer East Sea were still filled with scenes of the end of the world, of the Jade Sea having transformed into a fiery hell. Standing beside Yen Zhaoge, Ahu still had the appearance of that martial grandmaster of the heavenly thunder hall surnamed Zhang. For the duration of the imitation killing jade's effect, he would always maintain this appearance. However, this state could be dispelled prematurely if the user so wished. That skinny body abruptly straightened, the bones of his entire body emitting crackling sounds. The previous senior apprentice brother Zhang abruptly grew taller by almost 2 heads, his body also turning from skinny to muscular. Ahu regained his original appearance, stroking his lower chin. "Young master, this imitation killing jade is really useful. Sadly, there is only one. This time, you really took on a great risk." Yan Zhaoge's gaze was still gazing in the direction of the vortex. Under normal circumstances, for the imitation killing jade to be used for impersonation, it is either to deal with people who are unfamiliar with the impersonator, or it is like that Black Nightmare Mountain bastard back then, where you are extremely familiar with the impersonator. Otherwise, even if the external appearance is the same, if the expression, tone and habits of the impersonator are greatly different from the impersonator, those who are familiar with the impersonator would feel suspicious upon seeing it. While it is possible to imitate the other party's inner chi, it can only be done in a situation where an intense battle is not taking place. If the other party becomes suspicious, as soon as they make a move to test it out, it will immediately be seen through. Yan Zhaoge said, "This time, it was because of the urgency of the situation, the other party's attention not on you. Otherwise, it would have been very dangerous for you." Ahu chuckled, "Their attention is all on you, young master. While I seem to be in danger, I am actually safe." Yan Zhaoge nodded, his gaze fixed on the massive vortex of ice and fire in the distance. There, as time passed, the vortex of ice and fire finally began to gradually weaken, slowly dissipating. Ahu smacked his lips. "Young master, don't tell me that we have to follow the veins, destroying them bit by bit? There are probably hundreds of such nodes in the entire outer East Sea, if not 1,000. Yan Zhaoge shook his head. "It's no use. The momentum of the flame devils has already been established. Just destroying these nodes would only be treating the symptoms and not the root of the problem. Carefully observe the surroundings." Hearing his words, Ahu touched the back of his head, looking around earnestly, his expression gradually turning solemn. Because he discovered that as time passed, the nearby region of sea, which had originally already been relatively calm, showed signs of restlessness once more. The underwater mountain range broke apart once more, the underground fire which had retreated earlier showing signs of eruption once more. The surrounding seawater which had been isolated by his aura chi could clearly feel its temperature rising. Yan Zhaoge suddenly laughed. The numerous veins of the nodes intersect, resembling a massive net that encompasses the entire outer East Sea. As long as a single node is destroyed, not much time would be needed. With the combined effects of the entire net, it would be able to cause this corner which had calmed down to erupt once more. However, this kind of movement originates from the center of the net, causing the entire net to move together. Ahu came to a realization. "Young master, this is your true goal in destroying this node, to test the waters?" Yan Zhaoge gazed in a certain direction. "That's right. Through the restoration of this node and investigating the flow of the power of the net, we will be able to ascertain where its center is. That is where the crux of the problem lies." Letting out a long breath, Yan Zhaoge patted Pan Pan beneath him. "Now, let's set off." Chapter 396. Sitting on Pan Pan's back, Yan Zhaoge gazed into the distance, yet his gaze seemed unfocused. Concentrating, he unceasingly felt the changes and movements of the circulation of the earth veins at the bottom of the sea, earnestly identifying the source of the changes in the fire pith veins. Unlike earlier when all the nodes had been detonated at the same time, the true core of the network of fire veins set up by the flame devils had been concealed. Now, only that single node had been destroyed, being maintained and restored by the fire network as a whole. Traces instantly appeared in the circulation of the fire network, allowing Yen Zhaoge to trace its source and find its core. The region of sea where the vortex of fire and ice had arisen earlier had already been left far behind by Yen Zhaoge. However, Yen Zhaoge could feel that the scene of the end of the world erupting with underground fire had already returned there, the roiling jade sea having transformed into a boundless sea of flames. The abnormalities had already continued for many days. The seawater of the outer East Sea had already evaporated in great amount. If not for the unceasing replenishment of the surrounding sea, the vast outer East Sea would probably have already been burnt dry by the underground fire. The strange changes of nature had also caused the current weather over the sea to become extremely chaotic. Hurricanes, torrential rains, earthquakes and tsunamis were already a common occurrence. With such a large-scale abnormality occurring with the earth veins of the outer East Sea, even the spiritual chi flow of the entire sea and the eight extremities world was being affected. If this continued for a long time, the effects would be even more profound, hard to predict. For the flame devils who only knew destruction and plunder, they didn't really care about what the world before them had become. However, for the martial practitioners of the eight extremities world who had been born and raised here, the abnormalities in the spiritual chi flow were undoubtedly a massive calamity. The usually carefree Ahu was now filled with worry. "Young master, there should probably be flame devil experts guarding the core, right?" Yen Zhaoge stared ahead as he said, "It is not impossible." Sitting on Panpan's back, the two proceeded forward. The routes connecting the various nodes were still stable, forming a rather long and narrow safe zone. The underwater mountain range was silent, no underground fire erupting. And on the left and right sides of this long and narrow path, blazing fire could be seen unceasingly spurting from the depths of the sea, colliding with the seawater above as countless massive bubbles were formed which then rapidly floated to the surface of the sea. There was not just one such long and narrow path, but many of them, intersecting as they were laid out at the bottom of the outer East Sea. Yen Zhaoge did not follow a single path to the end as he advanced, instead changing directions multiple times in order to reach his destination as quickly as possible. Passing by many nodes along the way, Yen Zhaoge did not make a move as he just sped towards the core hub. The 9 icicles that had been used to set up the frigid abyss Dharma realm had already been used up at the first node in the fiery abyss. Currently sitting on Panpan's back, Yen Zhaoge hurried along while forging a second batch of ice spike. It was a pity that his internal crystal furnace had already exploded in Jade Sea City in order to assist in the birth of the Jade Sea Pill Heart Sword. If he wanted to refine the ice alls now, the difficulty would undoubtedly be much greater. Yen Zhaoge could only slowly polish them. On the outer East Sea, there were currently both the Flame Devils and the martial practitioners of the Eight Extremities world, the great battle between the two sides still continuing. Although the current outer East Sea was not as fiery as the Flame Demon Great World. However, the change in the external environment had caused the roles of host and guest to be reversed. The Flame Imps instead seemed to be fighting on their home ground. Not only did their battle prowess increase, they also seemed to never tire, becoming more and more valiant as they fought. The human martial artists could only grit their teeth and resist. The casualties gradually increased. Along the way, whether it was the Flame Devils or the human race, Yen Zhaoge met quite a few of them. However, on his way this time, Yen Zhaoge carefully kept the dark red ring left behind by the Flame Devil Emperor, preventing its aura from leaking out. Not just that, having already attracted the attention of most of the Flame Devils, Yen Zhaoge himself also kept his aura as much as possible. Now that the situation was urgent, speed was of utmost importance. Since the core of the fire net had already been roughly confirmed, Yen Zhaoge decided to avoid wasting time along the way as much as possible. Moving underwater, even with Panpan opening the way, their speed could not compare to that on land. As time passed, the surrounding environment had already become more and more hostile. Yen Zhaoge's expression was calm as usual, but a worried look inevitably appeared within his gaze. Finally nearing another node, Yen Zhaoge patted Pan Pan lightly. Pan Pan's advancing speed instantly slowed. While it seemed ordinary, no different from the other nodes, through Yen Zhaoge's various calculations, he could confirm that the node that had appeared before him now was that core that originated from the source of this massive fire net that enveloped the entire outer East Sea. For the flame devils to be able to shake the spiritual chi flow of the eight extremities world's earth veins on such a large scale within a short period of time, at the same time also hiding it from the eyes and ears of human martial experts, detonating the fire pith vein, it was most likely here as well. The reason Yen Zhaoge halted was because the scene before him was completely a perilous land. The problem did not lie at the bottom of the sea. At the bottom of the sea was a silent stretch of reef. There was only a massive entrance to a deep abyss at the center of the underwater mountains, within which streams of crimson fire flickered. The problem lay at the surface of the sea. Incomparably violent power fluctuations emanated from the top of the deep abyss of flames. In the air above the sea's surface, a great battle that was tragic to the extreme was currently underway. Its scale was even vaster and more terrifying than the previous Great Tribulation of Broad Creed Mountain and Jade Sea City. Even Yen Zhaoge, who was bold to the extreme, could only halt at this moment, not lightly approach. The so-called collapse of the heavens and the collapse of the earth, the overturning of rivers and overturning of the seas, was also just this. Seeing this scene that caused everyone's expressions to change, Yen Zhaoge instead heaved a sigh of relief, the anxiousness in his gaze easing slightly. Grand Master and the others have indeed found their way here. Currently, the intense battle above the sea, the heavens and the earth overturning, was precisely the peak martial experts of the eight extremities world led by Yuan Jingfeng, Huang Guanglie and the others, as well as the flame devil kings who had descended into the eight extremities world this time. The peak experts of the two worlds had originally been locked in battle in various parts of the outer East Sea, locked in a stalemate. Now, however, they had all congregated in the region of sea near the core of the fire net. Yen Zhaoge had destroyed a node of the fire net in the distance, causing a change to occur in the entire fire net as it began to repair itself. Whilst battling the flame devils, the human experts who were also trying to suppress the abnormalities in the fire pith vein immediately felt that something was different. Yuan Jingfeng and the other martial saint experts who were the strongest naturally detected it immediately, all deducing the changes in the earth veins as they found their way to the center of this fire net. Jing Zhong and the other flame devil kings naturally couldn't allow Yuan Jingfeng and the others to come and cause trouble. Therefore, they had pursued and fought all the way here, all congregating here. This region of sea was extremely vast to ordinary people. However, to martial saints, it was only a limited space. At this moment, within this extremely limited space, more than 10 martial saint experts were gathered on both sides, battling to the point where the heavens collapsed and the earth split apart. To be continued. Chapter 397. With the outer East Sea as the main battlefield, the great battle between the human experts of the eight extremities world and the invading flame devils was already nearing its climax. Accompanied by the unceasing eruption of the fire pith veins, the flame devils gradually gained the home ground advantage, launching a counterattack as they unceasingly threatened the regions outside of the outer East Sea. At this moment, Yuan Jingfeng and the other peak experts of the human race, having detected the source of the eruption of the fire pith veins, immediately hurrying over. The peak experts of the flame devil race were all gathered here as well, the two sides in a decisive battle in this region of sea. Yen Zhaoge remained on the outskirts, not approaching blindly. At the core of the battlefield, more than 10 martial saint experts attacked together, the surrounding space virtually already having been pierced through. Even the surrounding participants were all Essence Talisman martial grandmasters and great flame devils at the very least. Otherwise, just the aftershocks of the clash between martial saints would be sufficient to sweep through everything. It was like the situation during the Great Tribulation of Jade Sea City back then, just that the positions of the two sides were reversed now. At that time, Yuan Zhengfeng and An Qinglin had been on the defensive side. Facing the attacks of Jingzhong and the other Flame Devil Kings, they had had to divert their attention to protect Jade Sea City, inevitably falling into a passive position. Now, however, it was the exact opposite. The Flame Devils had to protect the core of the fire net here, preventing it from being destroyed by Yuan Zhengfeng and the other human experts. This way, with the two sides not having much of a difference in strength, the attacking side would unquestionably hold the initiative. If the defending side focused solely on defense, revealing a flaw, the attacking side might be able to make use of it, injuring the defending side. However, as time passed, the Flame Devils who had turned the outer East Sea into a sea of flames instead gained the home ground advantage, growing more and more valiant as they fought. If this continued, the Flame Devils would become even more arrogant. Their main targets were Yuan Zhengfeng, Huang Guanglie and the other human martial saint experts. However, they did not care much about martial grandmasters. Human martial grandmasters neared that deep abyss of flames, yet were unable to destroy it. A powerful force descended on the deep abyss of flames, causing fiery light to shoot out in all directions, the fire pith veins roiling, yet not calming down. The human martial grandmasters tried a few times to no avail, as they could only turn to assist Yuan Zhengfeng and the others, attempting to help them break through the defensive line of the Flame Devils. The Flame Devils, led by a few Flame Devil Kings, also tightly entangled the martial saint experts of the human race, preventing them from nearing the deep abyss of flames. After carefully observing for a moment, Yan Zhaoge attempted to contact his fellow Broad Creed Mountain seniors within the battlefield. Yuan Zhengfeng discovered him at the first instant. However, Yuan Zhengfeng was currently locked in battle with his old foe, the Flame Devil King Jingzhong, unable to extricate himself from the battle. After a short while, a figure forced through the layers of flowing fire, arriving before Yan Zhaoge. It was none other than Broad Creed Mountain's lineage's East Sea First Seat Elder, the Soaring Cloud Lord Fu Enshu, who had previously been watching over the outer East Sea. As a woman, Fu Enshu had always been strong and fierce, but at this moment, there was more of a bloody and fiery evil aura. "Why are you here too?" Fu Enshu asked. "Could it be that you were the one who destroyed the fire net earlier?" "It is indeed me," Yan Zhaoge said urgently. "Senior Apprentice Aunt Fu, can you send me to the core of this fire net?" Fu Enshu said, "The flame demons risked their lives to block the path, mainly to stop Master and the others." She appraised Yan Zhaoge. "Are you thinking of something again? I'm afraid the situation here is different from the node you destroyed before." Yan Zhaoge said, "There's a way to try. I dare not say that I'm completely confident, but it should work." After pondering for a moment, Fu Enshu made a prompt decision. "All right, I'll believe you." Saying thus, Fu Enshu formed a sword with her index and middle fingers, forming a sword seal as majestic sword light arose around her. Numerous sword lights condensed into sword talismans before transforming into a sword formation, sweeping Yan Zhaoge along as they shot into the skies, flying into the distance. Majestic and distant, the sword formation resembled a world of its own. It was precisely one of Broad Creed Mountain's three supreme martial arts, the limitless heavenly sword. Fu Enshu's sword traversed the air, bringing Yan Zhaoge along as she broke through the great sea, speeding towards the deep abyss of flames at the bottom of the sea. Immediately, flame devils surrounded them, obstructing the sword light. Fu Enshu ignored them all. A massive palm suddenly descended from the sky, resembling the collapse of the sky as it directly scattered the seawater down below, all the flame devils within perishing. It was precisely Yuan Zhengfeng who had made a move, clearing the path for Yan Zhaoge and Fu Enshu. Ever since their previous attempts had failed, it had always been Fu Enshu and the other martial grandmasters who had attempted to help Yuan Zhengfeng and the other martial saint experts break through. Now, the situation had suddenly reversed once more, with the flame devils being caught off guard, Yuan Jingfeng and Fu Enshu having successfully torn open a gap. The current strategy of the Flame Devils was to firmly prevent martial saints from getting past, while martial grandmasters might be able to. Fu Enshu's sword light shot straight in, shooting towards the depths of the sea. While they were irritable and easily angered, the sudden abnormal actions of the human martial practitioners also caused the Flame Devils to feel restless and uneasy, with some Flame Devil Kings wanting to make a move to obstruct Fu Enshu. Victory or defeat will be decided here. Yuan Jingfeng roared, attacking like the tide as he spurred the other martial saint experts along, pressuring down with the momentum of toppling mountains and overturning seas, forcing Jing Zhong and the other Flame Devil Kings to only be able to deal with what was before them. However, some great Flame Devils began to turn and chase after Fu Enshu. Fu Enshu's sword light expanded, putting Yen Zhaoge down, descending into the deep abyss of flames. She herself suddenly turned, blocking with her sword as she domineeringly met the pursuing great Flame Devils. Seeing Yen Zhaoge's figure, a great Flame Devil revealed a furious expression as he lunged over. However, a dense, ethereal sword light shot over, nearly piercing through him. Sword in hand, white clothes fluttering, Fu Enshu resembled a divine pillar that stabilized the seas as she stood above the deep abyss of flames, obstructing the approaching Flame Devils. At this moment, every second counted. Yen Zhaoge couldn't be bothered to look back at the scene behind him as he shot towards the entrance of the deep abyss at full speed. Opening his shadow shrinking pouch, 9 ice shards appeared within Yen Zhaoge's hands. Yen Zhaoge threw them out, the ice shards hovering within the seawater. Next, Yen Zhaoge punched out, his fist intent causing the ice shards to form a formation. Streams of ice-blue radiance flickered, numerous spirit patterns intersecting, coming together to form a massive formation. The 9 ice shards stood at the edges of the formation, light shining as they formed 9 white pillars of light, supporting the formation. Yen Zhaoge waved his hand, all the remaining devil-shattering ice talismans he currently had falling into the center of the formation. He punched out once more, the formation shuddering as, guarded by the 9 white pillars of light, it descended into the deep abyss of flames down below. The deep abyss shook for a moment, the light of fire intermingling, yet no other changes could be seen. Seeing this, the human martial practitioners who had originally held some anticipation inevitably revealed looks of disappointment on their faces. They could only raise their spirits, returning to their earlier plan as they did their best to assist Yuan Jingfeng, Huang Guanglie and the others in breaking through the defensive line of the Flame Devils. While this method was not as effective as it had been at that previous point, Yen Zhaoge's expression was not flustered in the least as he just gazed very earnestly at the deep abyss of flames down below. Within the fiery light, Yen Zhaoge vaguely saw something. Something that was completely incompatible with its surroundings. A small crimson pagoda. To be continued. Chapter 398. Although the crimson pagoda was in the midst of raging flames, it gave off a feeling of tranquility and peace. The raging flames around the small pagoda seemed to have become less terrifying. Still, it was precisely because of the existence of this small pagoda that streams of red treasured light surged upwards, locking down the cold abyss domain that Yen Zhaoge had thrown towards the sea of flames. The formation supported by the 9 beams of white light floated above the sea of fire, unable to descend. While being obstructed by the deep abyss of flames, Yen Zhaoge was unable to carefully analyze it. He was still able to feel the profound concept contained within. This small red pagoda seemed to have become one with the fire pith in the earth vein. It did not have to be asked that this object definitely played an important role in the Flame Devil race being able to so easily shake the flow of the earth veins of the 8 extremities world. The small red pagoda was now connected to the fire pith vein, making it difficult for the martial grandmaster experts to use their attack. Yen Zhaoge's attempt to disrupt it with the cold abyss domain was blocked by the small red pagoda as well. No wonder they are only guarding against martial saint experts like Grandmaster, Seeing this, Yan Zhaoge nodded to himself. Just as he was looking, he felt a strong killing intent pressing down on him from above. While the flame devil King Qing Huang had already been slain by Yuan Zhengfeng, Yan Zhaoge's appearance had still drawn the attention of the flame devils. In the language unique to the flame devils, manic roars that were hard to understand resounded as numerous great flame devils ignored the other martial grandmasters of the human race, instead rushing towards Yan Zhaoge like a swarm of bees. Fu Enshu held the longsword in her hand horizontally before her chest, not showing any fear in the face of the ferocious horde of great flame devils as she took the initiative to meet them. Seeing this, some martial grandmasters of Broad Creed Mountain and Jade Sea City hurriedly descended, helping Fu Enshu to block these great flame devils. After hesitating slightly for a moment, the martial grandmaster experts of Infinite Boundless Mountain and Turbid Wave Pavilion also descended, both sides still locked in battle. While the situation was still unclear, at such a critical juncture, the various miracles that Yan Zhaoge had created in the past caused them to choose to believe in this youth. The Sacred Sun Clan and the Heavenly Thunder Hall martial practitioners continued to assist Huang Guanglie, Shun Li and the others, hoping that their martial saint experts would be able to break through the defensive lines of the Flame Devil King. Of all the peak experts of the Eight Extremities world present, due to the environment, the one who currently performed the most outstandingly was the East-coming martial saint Huang Guanglie. In an environment filled with a sea of flames, the Sacred Sun Clan martial practitioners were like flame devils, growing braver the more they fought. Huang Guanglie of the second level of the martial saint realm was even more domineering, looking even more ferocious than the flame devils. However, the flame devils were also keeping a close eye on Huang Guanglie, constantly obstructing his advance. In the battle at the martial saint level, the flame devils attacked the human experts with all their might. The battle situation at the level of martial grandmasters just happened to be reversed, with the group of martial grandmasters led by Fu Enshu blocking the descending great flame devils with all their might. The human martial practitioners who had originally already been in a disadvantageous position, now without the Sacred Sun Clan and the Heavenly Thunder Hall, faced with the attacks of the flame devils that resembled the tidewaters, they instantly appeared powerless. Great flame devils began to break through the defensive line, charging towards the deep abyss of flames between the mountains at the bottom of the sea. Fu Enshu's sword light flashed, resembling a rainbow piercing through the great sea as her sword descended, chopping off half of the leg of that great flame devil that resembled a crab. As the great flame devil roared madly, a hole suddenly opened up on its chest before a thick pillar of flame surged out, causing Fu Enshu's sword light to waver. At the same time, another great flame devil chased down, targeting Fu Enshu's vitals behind her back. Fu Enshu's sword light formed a circle, a ring of light appearing, resembling the great door to a new world. It was also like a leather sack that swallowed the heavens and the earth, opening its mouth, inviting the enemy to enter its urn. The heavy, majestic sword intent forced that great flame devil to halt, lest it walk right into its trap. However, the next moment, this great flame devil abruptly spun, arriving by Fu Enshu's side, continuing to lunge towards Yan Zhaoge. Fu Enshu retracted her sword to block it, but who knew that this was just a feint, its true target being Fu Enshu herself. Here! Fu Enshu stared wide-eyed, not evading as she met attack with attack, stabbing out with her sword. Her waist was injured by the flame devil's claw, but her sword also pierced straight through this great flame devil. However, on the other side, the attacks of the flame devils grew more and more urgent, beginning to break through the defensive line established by Fu Enshu and the others, descending towards the deep abyss of flames down below. At the entrance to the deep abyss, Yan Zhaoge's mind was currently highly focused, ignoring even if sabers and swords struck him. His attention was focused on that small red pagoda, on the abnormal movements of the fire pith vein before him. I originally wanted to bring this thing back to the clan. Now it looks like I can only take the bulk of it for myself. Yen Zhaoge let out a breath of turbid air. While it won't be a waste, I might have to spend some more effort. After having calculated everything in his heart, Yen Zhaoge immediately expanded his shadow shrinking pouch. Within the shadow shrinking pouch, the pillar of the divine palace no longer continued suppressing. That true dragon's body sealed within the ice pillar instantly flew out on its own accord. Having left the shadow shrinking pouch, the stone pillar and the ice pillar both grew with the wind, instantly becoming massive. Yen Zhaoge's entire body's aura qi surged, all transforming into a fiery heat before he drew Heaven Shocker, pulling back the bowstring. As the bowstring vibrated, purple thunderbolts intermingled with blazing crimson fire, mightily striking the ice pillar that had frozen the true dragon's body within. The ice pillar began to collapse, the true dragon's body within shaking, the indistinct roar of a dragon resounding. The ice dragon that had already perished did not revive. However, the spirituality contained within made one feel as though a true, living dragon had descended into the human world. Be it humans or fire devils, all were taken aback by the surging dragon might. Having chased him to the entrance of the deep abyss, the great flame devil regained its wits, roaring madly as it rushed into the deep abyss, instantly arriving before Yen Zhaoge. Yen Zhaoge completely ignored that great flame devil, just minding his own business as he stood atop the pillar of the divine palace before stomping downwards. The pillar of the divine palace immediately flashed with a rainbow-colored light and continued to suppress the ice dragon's body. Then, it descended together into the bottom of the fiery abyss. There, Yen Zhaoge's cold abyss domain was locked in place by the small red pagoda. Now, however, Yen Zhaoge stood atop the pillar of the divine palace, pressuring down on the corpse of the ice dragon below as his entire body shot into the formation enveloped by the 9 pillars of white light. As the light flickered, the dragon's roar gradually became more real. The power of extreme cold spread out in an instant, causing the temperature at the bottom of the abyss to drop rapidly. Yen Zhaoge kept the pillar of the divine palace, entering the cold abyss domain himself. He stretched out his hands. The stellar energy on both sides, one hot and one cold, fused with yin and yang, then slapped down simultaneously. The ice dragon seemed to have come to life, and its huge body wrapped around the scarlet pagoda. Its actual fleshly body actually gradually transformed into an ice-blue light dragon at this moment. That great flame devil persevered as it pursued Yen Zhaoge all the way to the bottom of the deep abyss, clawing towards Yen Zhaoge's head. However, enveloped by the cold abyss domain, Yen Zhaoge had already descended to the top of the crimson pagoda. He punched out towards the center of the pagoda, the power of ice and fire instantly shooting into the skies, blocking that great flame devil's claw. Amidst that great flame devil's unresigned roar, Yen Zhaoge let out a long roar that resembled a dragon's, the crimson pagoda beginning to shake intensely. To be continued. Chapter 399. Standing at the top of the crimson pagoda, Yen Zhaoge roared towards the heavens. The cold abyss Dharma realm enveloped his body. Within the formation, the ice-blue light dragon coiled around the scarlet pagoda, causing it to soar into the sky. Surrounding the formation, 9 pillars of white light stood erect, revolving rapidly around Yen Zhaoge in their center. As the 9 white light pillars rotated, they stirred up the lava and fire in the surrounding abyss like a turbine. A huge whirlpool of ice and fire appeared, and it continued to expand. At the center of the vortex, Yen Zhaoge's expression was calm and resolute as he raised his head and looked upwards. The great flame devil that had chased him all the way down was currently letting out a shocked and furious roar, its body having already been swept up by the vortex of ice and fire. Standing atop the crimson pagoda, Yen Zhaoge was instead calm and tranquil at the center of the vortex. The icy blue light dragon swept up the pagoda and soared into the sky, rushing out of the abyss. Without the suppression of the crimson pagoda, this raging inferno abyss was finally shaken. Following that, the surrounding earth veins were also shaken. The core, the source, was changing, and the entire outer East Sea seemed to be affected. Looking down from high in the sky, the massive fire net that covered the entire outer East Sea seemed to flicker and dim slightly. As the crimson pagoda rose into the sky, the ice-blue light dragon roared and circled around. Standing atop the pagoda, Yen Zhaoge assumed a fist stance, his fist intent similarly circulating to the maximum. The light dragon coiling around the pagoda extended its head and neck, also coiling around Yen Zhaoge's body. As the pagoda was activated, streams of red light extended to envelop Yen Zhaoge's entire body. As the acupoints of Yen Zhaoge's entire body pulsed, the red and blue light merged unceasingly within his body. A great amount of essence qi enveloped the heavens and covered the earth, virtually swallowing Yen Zhaoge whole like a tidal wave. With Yen Zhaoge's foundation in cultivating in the peerless heavenly scripture, he was unable to refine all of such a massive amount of essence qi in a short period of time, only able to first store and nourish it. It was only Yen Zhaoge who could do this. If it were any other late spirit vessel martial grandmaster, they would have directly exploded and died. Yen Zhaoge opened his eyes, blue and red light flickering within his pupils. A large amount of essence qi was absorbed and stored by him, and a part of it that he could refine went into the mass of primal chaos qi in his body. Feeling the profundities of the true dragon corpse transforming from a fleshly body into a light dragon, feeling the unique concept within the crimson pagoda, a light flickered within Yen Zhaoge's mind. He let out a long breath. His voice was like the roar of a tiger or a dragon. All the acupoints of Yen Zhaoge's entire body opened in unison, streaks of aura qi intermingling with red and blue light shooting out of his body, transforming into numerous dragons of light as they coiled around Yen Zhaoge. At this moment, he stretched out his fist stance. Yen Zhaoge punched forward, the concept that resembled chaos gradually turning fake into real. The spirit sprout that had been strengthened to the extreme had finally taken shape, turning into a thick root system that was deeply rooted between heaven and earth. It truly had the possibility of breaking out of the earth. Above Yen Zhaoge's head, a blurry, auspicious cloud seemed to have appeared. It was chaotic, able to contain all things, able to transform all things, able to destroy all things. Only Yen Zhaoge himself could comprehend the profundities contained within this clump of chaotic cloud. In the eyes of others, it seemed right yet wasn't, and it was indistinct and difficult to notice its existence. This was precisely Yen Zhaoge's true martial soul. Today, Yen Zhaoge had successfully stepped into the essence spirit martial grandmaster realm. As the chaotic qi mass appeared and vanished, an all-encompassing clear qi suffused the area, resembling the sky itself. Numerous streaks of aura qi intermingled between red and blue, coiling beneath this clear sky, resembling dragons within. The aura qi combined with Yen Zhaoge's true martial soul, gradually transforming into true essence. Having surpassed the bottleneck of refining aura qi into essence, Yen Zhaoge's strength had improved greatly. The crimson pagoda flew into the air along with the ice-blue light dragon, gradually transforming into a streak of light as it shot out of the sea's surface. As everyone saw it, it was like a true dragon had left the sea, with Yen Zhaoge standing on its head. The flame devils all let out enraged, frenzied howls, shaking the entire heavens and earth as it seemed to be trembling. Yuan Zhengfeng, on the other hand, was filled with joy as he laughed loudly. Everyone present stared dazedly at Yen Zhaoge within the sky, who resembled a soaring dragon. He actually really did it? The flame devil King Jingzhong wanted to intercept Yen Zhaoge and the light dragon that shot into the sky, but Yuan Zhengfeng had long since been prepared for this as he blocked him. The deep abyss of flames within the great sea down below began to shake intensely, the originally comparatively calm reefs of the seabed collapsing unceasingly around the deep abyss, underground fire surging. Meanwhile, in other areas of the nearby region of sea, the originally violent underground fire and lava began to cool down and calm. It was not just this region of sea. Following the veins of the fire net, it extended outwards from its center. One after another, originally calm nodes were detonated, but the great tribulation that had set the entire outer East Sea ablaze earlier gradually dissipated. And as time passed, the numerous deep abysses of flames also gradually began to cool after having erupted, finally regaining their calm. The vast fire net that enveloped the entire outer East Sea finally vanished. The fire pith calmed, the spiritual chi flow of the earth veins no longer restless. The dense white mist and steam began to gradually disperse, the outer East Sea which had previously resembled purgatory regaining its former appearance. While the flame devils were even more violent and enraged, their soaring arrogance abruptly plummeted greatly. The environment here was no longer a sea of flames that they could rampage about as they pleased. Having lost their geographical advantage, while the flame devils' frenzied battle intent did not diminish, faced with the counterattacks of so many experts of the human race, they still felt hard-pressed to hold on. While the human martial practitioners of the Eight Extremities world were currently also like arrows at the end of their flight, with their morale greatly boosted, all those who still had strength left launched an all-out attack against the flame devils. Those who were more heavily injured could finally relax at this moment, no longer having to forcibly push themselves to hold on. They did not pursue the flame devils, instead remaining where they were to recuperate. As they regulated their breathing, they looked at that light dragon coiling within the horizon, as well as Yen Zhaoge standing atop its head. Just now, could that have been the complete corpse of a true dragon? It can't be wrong. Its flesh, blood, hair and scales are all complete. Otherwise, it wouldn't have possessed such great power. But even if it was the corpse of a true dragon, it is still a dead dragon at the end of the day, not a living one. It shouldn't have been able to accomplish such a great feat, right? That's right. After all, that Yen Zhaoge's cultivation base has yet to reach the Essence Talisman Martial Grandmaster realm. But he succeeded. This is his personal ability. Everyone present was an expert of a region, longtime elders of various clans, at least at the 7th level of the Martial Grandmaster realm, the early Essence Talisman stage. However, looking at Yen Zhaoge at this moment, they either sighed in admiration or gazed at him. Just now, he seemed to have refined aura into essence, cultivating in his true martial soul? How old is he? Even further away, while the human martial practitioners were unable to see the exact scene, everyone could see that silhouette of a dragon that shot into the skies. After the silhouette of the dragon shot into the skies, the terrifying tribulation of the East Sea being cooked by fire began to gradually vanish. Not knowing what had happened, everyone could not help but feel even more shocked. The light dragon coiled 36 times within the sky before gradually dissipating. Standing at the top of the pagoda, Yen Zhaoge lowered his head, seeing the red light on the pagoda slowly retracting, a blue dragon pattern appearing on its surface. To be continued. Chapter 400. Having lost their geographical advantage, beneath the final counterattack of the experts of the Eight Extremities world, the Flame Devils were forced into retreat. This great battle had finally reached the final stage where the final battle would be decided. While the Flame Devils had retreated in defeat, Jing Zhong and the other Flame Devil Kings still possessed outstanding strength, while Yuan Zhengfeng and the others had experienced a fierce battle and were also greatly exhausted. Still, the human experts still grit their teeth and pursued the Flame Devils all the way, striving to maximize their battle gains as well as completely driving the Flame Devils out of the Eight Extremities world. Yen Zhaoge did not participate in the pursuit as he stood atop the Crimson Pagoda. The Flame Devils virtually do not forge artifact. This pagoda also does not seem to be the handiwork of the Flame Devils, Yen Zhaoge pondered. After pondering for a moment, Yen Zhaoge was also unable to grasp the gist of it. However, this small crimson pagoda gave Yen Zhaoge the feeling that it had not been forged by the Flame Devil himself. Instead, it seemed a little like it originated from the Eight Extremities world. He raised his eyebrows slightly. Then, was it some sort of fortuitous encounter, or was it given to the flame demon by someone else? Many thoughts flashed through Yen Zhaoge's mind for a time before they all settled down. He tried to communicate with the Crimson Pagoda with his mind, but it was like a stone sinking into the ocean. After the Crimson Pagoda fell silent, it seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep and did not respond to any contact from the outside world. Yen Zhaoge infused his true essence within the pagoda. The pagoda shook slightly, the coiling blue dragon patterns on its surface also lighting up. Instantly, streams of qi, one hot and one cold, surged from within, feeding back to Yen Zhaoge. The oceanic amount of spiritual qi within his body that had yet to be refined was already filled to the brim. Yen Zhaoge naturally did not continue absorbing it. However, as the spiritual qi intermingled, a scene seemed to appear before Yen Zhaoge's eyes. In this crimson world, the raging flames that should have been raging showed an abnormal state. The flames were quiet and gentle, like flowing water. In this world of scarlet flames, an icy blue cloud gathered and dispersed. It wasn't as solid as ordinary ice, but it seemed to be active and restless. Ice and fire were both abnormal, but they seemed to be in a strange harmony. It made people feel as if they were supposed to be like this, or else it would be abnormal. The profundities within were extremely profound. Seeing this scene, many spiritual lights seemed to surface within Yen Zhaoge's heart, seemingly about to erupt. Oh, comprehending the profundities of this scene would indeed be quite beneficial for my martial cultivation. Yen Zhaoge tried keeping the entire Crimson Pagoda within his shadow-shrinking pouch. As expected, it wasn't as restless as the true dragon's body from before, needing the assistance of the Divine Palace's pillar to suppress it. Under the premise that the space within the shadow-shrinking pouch was large enough, the small Crimson Tower was stably stored inside. Yen Zhaoge kept the small Crimson Pagoda, scanning their surroundings. He saw that the people who were still at the scene had complicated expressions on their faces, and their gazes were focused on him. The people who stayed to recuperate and did not chase after the flame devils were mostly heavily injured. They had expended too much of their energy and were already at the end of their tether. However, as Yen Zhaoge's gaze swept over, he clearly saw some people who were in relatively better condition. It was an elder with a square face and a wide mouth. His appearance was formidable to the extreme, and his gaze was focused as he stared at him. While this was the first time they had met, Yen Zhaoge had long since seen the other party's appearance. One of the 7 reigning suns, the Heaven-Striking Lord, the Sacred Sun Clan's previous highest authority in the Outer East Sea. His position equivalent to Broad Creed Mountain's East Sea First Seat Elder Fu Anshu. In the great battle earlier, the Sacred Sun Clan had also suffered some casualties. However, the Heaven-Striking Lord had not been greatly depleted. Normally speaking, he should have been pursuing the Flame Devils alongside Huang Guanglie. However, he had remained here now. With the Flame Devils having been routed on all fronts, there was no need for a figure like the Heaven-Striking Lord to make a move to clean up the remnants of the Outer East Sea. Even using his knees to think, Yen Zhaoge knew what he had come for. It was precisely this small Crimson Pagoda that he possessed. The Flame Devils having been able to shake the flow of the earth veins on such a large scale in the 4 and 8 Extremities world, this treasure had most likely played a huge role in it. It was naturally only natural that the Sacred Sun Clan, who was currently hard-pressed by the Southern Underground Palace, would set their eyes on this object. If it was someone else's problem, Yen Zhaoge might help. However, if it was their mortal enemy, the Sacred Sun Clan, there was no need to even think about it. Let alone the fact that the abnormalities in the Southern Underground Palace of the Sacred Sun Clan were precisely Yen Zhaoge's handiwork. Yen Zhaoge didn't care about the Heaven-Striking Lord who was eyeing them like a tiger watching its prey. While Fu Enshu's injuries were very severe, a Jade Sea City elder who wasn't injured at all also remained where he was. Even though they didn't know what the Sacred Sun Clan wanted to do, Jade Sea City had always been paying attention to this mortal enemy. The heaven-striking lord's abnormal actions immediately drew their attention, with an elder specifically remaining behind. At this moment, the two sides were locked in a stalemate, their auras fierce. The heaven-striking lord's gaze shifted between Yen Zhaoge and that Jade Sea City elder, his gaze heavy at times, restless at others as he remained silent for a long time. The strange atmosphere between the two sides gradually drew the attention of others. As time passed, seeing that things couldn't be done, the heaven-striking lord finally retracted his gaze, turning to leave. The group of great grandmaster experts also dispersed. With the battle still not over, these heavily injured martial grandmaster experts did not go to the front lines, instead turning to dealing with the aftermath. While settling the rear, they led other martial practitioners with lower cultivation bases in clearing away the remaining flame devils on the Great Sea. After such a tragic great battle, the spiritual chi cycle of the outer East Sea had virtually collapsed, a great number of life forms having perished within, causing this place to virtually become a land of death similar to the Earth domain. Even though it was connected to the inner East Sea as well as the South Sea, North Sea and Far Ocean, a very long time would be needed for it to recover to its previous environment. And everyone knew that the door to the Flame Devil world was ultimately here. The outer East Sea would also be a battlefield of 100 battles in the future, and it would probably be very hard for it to remain peaceful. As Yen Zhaoge remained behind, news from the front lines also came in unceasingly. Yuan Zhengfeng and the other peak experts had pursued them all the way, completely driving the Flame Devil race out of the Eight Extremities world. While the Flame Devils had been defeated, they had many experts, most of whom had safely returned to the Flame Devil world. However, following Qing Huang, another Flame Devil king had been eternally buried in the Eight Extremities world. For the peak experts of the human race, the Lord of Turbid Wave Pavilion and Qinglin, the Lord of Jade Sea City Song Wuliang, as well as the painting saint Old Man Mo, had all been heavily injured. Still, no martial saint expert had perished. With the great battle having come to an end, there were still many things that had to be taken care of afterwards, but it was at least no longer a situation of turbulence. It was instead the words of the painting saint Old Man Mo, who had always transcended worldly affairs, before returning to Verdant Pill Island, that caused many thoughts to flow through everyone's minds. Great Rider of Dragons, one hand supporting the heavens, broad Creed Mountains. Yen Zhaoge's future is limitless. Countless thoughts circulated within everyone's hearts, finally all transforming into a single exclamation of praise. Henceforth, the name of the Great Rider of Dragons Yen Zhaoge would be passed down in this world. To be continued. Chapter 401. The painting saint, Old Man Mo, was detached from worldly affairs and had never interfered in the disputes between the 6 sacred grounds. However, there was no one in the entire Eight Extremities world who would doubt his position as an expert. Even if the young man had limited knowledge of the martial saint, he still knew the importance of a martial saint. The leaders of the various holy lands knew very well how powerful this old expert, who was from the same generation as Heavenly Venerate Han, Sky Diviner, and Purple Sun Martial Saint, was. As the most senior expert of the current Eight Extremities world, Old Man Mo did not act, but when he did, it was extraordinary. The ferocity of the Flame Devil's invasion this time far exceeded everyone's expectations, such that the entire outer East Sea was lost. Not just a single Flame Devil King equivalent to the second level of the Martial Saint realm had intruded into the Eight Extremities world. The Pavilion Lord of Turbid Wave Pavilion and Qinglin, who had first arrived at the outer East Sea, having been directly heavily injured. It was fortunate that Old Man Mo had arrived in time. Otherwise, Qinglin might have perished in the outer East Sea in the face of the enemy's most ferocious and unexpected first wave of attack. Afterwards, with Old Man Mo as the central pillar of support, he delayed the advance of the Flame Devils and did not fall into chaos. He reconstructed a defensive line at the border between the inner East Sea and the outer East Sea, persevering until the other experts of the human race arrived to reinforce them, laying the foundations for their counterattack. It was during this period of time that Old Man Mo was surrounded and attacked by many flame devils, thus being injured. However, he still participated in the counterattack against the outer East Sea despite his injuries. As the fire pith veins of the earth veins erupted, the flames boiling the East Sea, Old Man Mo persisted in not retreating as he joined forces with Yuan Zhengfeng and the others to deal with the flame devils, all the way until the final, all-out attack that chased the flame devils out of the Eight Extremities world. After Huang Guanglie had broken through to the second level of the martial saint realm and successfully advanced a step further, many people believed that he might be the current #1 expert of the Eight Extremities world. However, after the Battle of the East Sea, Old Man Mo, who had always been elusive and unfathomable, finally went all out, letting the world know that while he was currently the person with the highest cultivation base in the 6 great sacred grounds, Huang Guanglie was still not the #1 expert of the entire Eight Extremities world. Therefore, it was easy to imagine the weight of a top expert like Old Man Mo's word. In particular, this old man's age was such that even Yuan Zhengfeng, Huang Guanglie, and the others were his juniors. His praise towards Yan Zhaoge did not have the feeling of looking down on him from a higher position. Instead, it carried some ardent anticipation. Everyone knew that other than Broad Creed Mountain's exalted heaven shaker Zhan Dongge and the heaven diviner Zhan Shilo, whether of the same generation or the younger generation, Old Man Mo was a man of few words, never commenting on those of the 6 great sacred grounds. But now, such a high praise fell on a young man in his 20s. What caused everyone to have mixed feelings was that when they heard Old Man Mo's words, even though they were surprised, none of them had the intention to object. It wasn't because of Old Man Mo's strength and status, but because there was indeed nothing to object to. A great rider of dragons, a single hand supporting the heavens, Broad Creed Mountain's Yan Zhaoge's future is limitless. Everyone slowly digested this sentence. Although there were many thoughts in their minds, they all faintly felt that it was only natural. This kind of natural feeling made many people feel even more complicated. Not only did the painting saint, Old Man Mo, return to Verdant Pill Island, but the other human cultivators who had rushed to the East Sea to participate in the battle also returned to their own sections. Turbid Wave Pavilion's Pavilion Lord and Qinglin did not need to be said. Like Old Man Mo, she had also been participating in the battle with injuries, forcibly holding on. Upon returning to Turbid Wave Pavilion this time, she would probably immediately enter secluded cultivation to recuperate. The Sacred Sun clans Huang Guanglie and the Heavenly Thunder Halls Xinli were both in rather good states. Still, they did not linger for long, each returning to their own mountains. After hearing the Heaven Striking Lord's report, Huang Guanglie did not speak, just looking first at Yan Zhaoge and then at Yuan Zhengfeng beside him before turning and leaving. The Lord of the Heavenly Thunder Hall, Xunli, glanced at Yan Zhaoge with a rather complicated expression on his face, a probing look appearing in the depths of his gaze before he too left with the other Heavenly Thunder Hall martial practitioners. The Lord of Jade Sea City, the Jade Sea Martial Saint Song Wuliang, had brought along his newly forged sacred artifact, the Jade Sea Pill Heart Sword, to battle in the outer East Sea. With the abnormalities in the fire veins and the flame devils having the home advantage, Song Wuliang had battled a flame devil king equivalent to a second-level martial saint, having been injured. With the great battle having ended, he had to return to Jade Sea City to recuperate. With the invasion of the flame devils this time, Jade Sea City had directly faced their vanguard. Of the 6 great sacred grounds, they had suffered the most severe damage, having nearly been destroyed. Fortunately, the Jade Sea Pill Heart Sword had appeared, preserving Jade Sea City's vitality. However, with their clan virtually having been destroyed and Song Wuliang injured, they would also need time to recover their vitality. The aftermath of the battle on the East Sea had mostly been handled by Jade Sea City. However, whether it was the Great Tribulation of Jade Sea City earlier or the final battle on the outer East Sea afterwards, all of Jade Sea City had been extremely grateful towards Yan Zhaoge. I will be returning to Jade Sea City now, needing to recuperate. I'm afraid that I will not be able to receive you well. When I have recovered from my injuries and emerged from seclusion, I hope that Senior Heaven-equaling Saint and little friend Yen can come to my Jade Sea City as guests. Before parting, Jade Sea City's City Lord Song Wuliang personally extended an invitation to Yan Zhaoge and Yuan Zhengfeng. If it had been anyone else, others would most likely have thought that he was inviting Yuan Zhengfeng, with Yan Zhaoge merely being a member of the younger generation in passing. However, everyone here knew that at this moment, Yan Zhaoge was similarly a guest that Song Wuliang had invited personally. Of the entire Broad Creed Mountain, other than Yuan Zhengfeng and the current chief Yan Di, there was only Yan Zhaoge who was currently here, who could be personally invited by Jade Sea City's City Lord Song Wuliang. Yuan Zhengfeng smiled. There will definitely be a chance in the future. Yan Zhaoge smiled, answering, City Lord Song is polite. I hope that I will be able to receive your guidance in the future. After taking his leave of Song Wuliang, Yan Zhaoge, Yuan Zhengfeng and the others also embarked on their return journey. Accompanying them were also Fu Enshu, Sikong Qing, and the other Broad Creed Mountain martial practitioners. While the Flame Devils had been repelled, the threat still existed. The various sacred grounds would still station experts here at the outer East Sea, guarding against the Flame Devils' invasion once more. Having been heavily injured in this battle, Fu Enshu returned to the mountain along with Yan Zhaoge, Yuan Zhengfeng and the others to recuperate. The position of East Sea's first seat elder would naturally be taken over by other long-time elders of the clan. I'm afraid that ever since our clan had the position of East Sea's first seat elder, I have been in office for the shortest period of time. Fu Enshu shook her head, smiling rather self-deprecatingly. Yuan Zhengfeng said, Indeed, I have been in office for the shortest period of time. If possible, Master would also not wish for it to be like this. However, it is not that I am unwilling to see you return to the mountain. Instead, it means that there are no major battles on the outer East Sea, with the Flame Devils not causing as much trouble as they did this time. Fu Enshu nodded. This disciple also does not wish to resign and leave the East Sea because of my injuries. Yan Zhaoge said, This time, it is because of me that senior apprentice Aunt Fu is fighting to the death against the Flame Devils. Fu Enshu said nonchalantly, Being able to quell the chaos of the Flame Devils is the most important thing. Yan Zhaoge looked thoughtful. The invasion of the Flame Devils this time has been repelled, but its influence on the overall situation of the Eight Extremities world is long-term. I'm afraid that it has only just begun. Chapter 402. The invasion of the Flame Devils had just been repelled, the storm on the East Sea finally calming down. However, as Yan Zhaoge saw it, looking at the situation of the Eight Extremities world as a whole, the influence of the invasion of the Flame Devils this time had only just begun to ferment. No matter what, Jade Sea City now possessed its own sacred artifact, the Jade Sea Pill Heart Sword. This caused Jade Sea City's strength to improve greatly. If not for the great tribulation brought about by the Flame Devils this time, causing Jade Sea City to suffer the most grievous losses, suffering a great blow to its vitality, Jade Sea City would have immediately surpassed Infinite Boundless Mountain, Turbid Wave Pavilion and the Heavenly Thunder Hall. Facing Broad Creed Mountain and the Sacred Sun Clan, even if they were inferior, they would still be on the same level. The invasion of the Flame Devils had resulted in a great tribulation for Jade Sea City. While the Jade Sea Pill Heart Sword had been successfully forged, the City Lord Song Wuliang had been injured and the Jade Sea Limitless Grand Formation that guarded the clan had been completely abandoned, having to be set up anew. Aside from this, their disciples had suffered heavy casualties. The Flame Devils had also invaded the inner Eastern Sea, which was their territory, causing losses in various areas. Its foundation and potential were already laid out there. Able to tide through these tough times and recover its vitality, when Jade Sea City next appeared before the world in its peak condition, it was destined to be even stronger than before this great tribulation. However, how they could tide through these bitter days was the problem that Jade Sea City had to face. First, not mentioning whether the flame devils might invade once more, just the interior of the Eight Extremities world alone was something that Jade Sea City would have to raise their vigilance. It was very hard to imagine that the Sacred Sun Clan and the Heavenly Thunder Hall would sit by and watch as Jade Sea City recovered its vitality. After the Great Tribulation of Broad Creed Mountain, the Alliance of Broad Creed Mountain, Jade Sea City and Infinite Boundless Mountain had originally already held the upper hand against the Sacred Sun Clan and the Heavenly Thunder Hall. If Jade Sea City's strength rose a step further, the disadvantage of the Thunder and Fire Domain Alliance would undoubtedly be even greater. In the great battle against the Flame Devils this time, the Sacred Sun Clans Huang Guanglie and the Heavenly Thunder Halls Xunli had both not suffered much damage. That Song Wuliang had been in a rush to return to Jade Sea City to watch over it was out of consideration for his safety. While he wanted to recuperate from his injuries, he would also have to constantly be on the lookout for the Sacred Sun Clan and the Heavenly Thunder Hall to suddenly come knocking on his door. After this great battle, Yuan Zhengfeng's condition had also been comparatively better. As an ally, he was a powerful aide that Jade Sea City could trust. It was just that with the invasion of the Flame Devils this time, Jade Sea City had already owed Broad Creed Mountain too many favors, causing Song Wuliang and the others to feel very pressured. Yan Zhaoge stroked his lower chin. Turbid Wave Pavilion shouldn't have any problems, right? As the pillar of Turbid Wave Pavilion, the Pavilion Lord and Qinglin had been injured in this great battle, possibly even being the one who had been injured the most amongst all the martial saint experts of the Eight Extremities world. When she returned to the mountain this time, she was most likely going to cultivate in seclusion to heal her wounds. Otherwise, she might be left with an injury that would last forever. Not to mention that her path to ascension would be blocked. It would be a miracle if she didn't drop her cultivation level. With Qinglin in seclusion, Turbid Wave Pavilion's strength appeared somewhat weak. Although they had always maintained a neutral stance, Turbid Wave Pavilion, which controlled the vast territory of the lake region's 6 paths and possessed limitless resources, could be coveted by others. I don't think there will be a problem, Yan Zhaoge pondered. Under such circumstances, if anyone were to make a move on Turbid Wave Pavilion, they would probably incur public wrath. Even if we occupy the territory of the lake region, converting the resources into tangible growth in strength isn't something that can be done in a day or two. The group returned to Broad Creed Mountain in the central heaven region of the Heaven Domain. Along the way, news and intelligence reports from various places were unceasingly reported to Yuan Zhengfeng and Yan Zhaoge. Accompanied by the subsiding of the abnormalities in the fire pith veins, the outer East Sea gradually regained its calm. Its influence on the surrounding regions of sea, similar to the tsunamis and surging tides caused by the change in the climate, also slowly subsided. The earlier calamity had affected even the coasts of the mainland. However, the greatest influence was still the circulation of the spiritual qi of the earth veins. It wasn't like how Yan Zhaoge had previously made use of the fire pith essence of the southern underground palace when his Broad Creed Mountain had attacked the fire domain to locate it. This time, all the spiritual qi of the earth veins of the entire outer East Sea had been transformed into fire pith essence, simultaneously affecting the changes in the surrounding earth veins. With the outer East Sea as its core, the surrounding inner East Sea, outer North Sea, outer South Sea as well as the distant seas further east all experienced changes in the earth veins at the bottom of the sea, the blazing hot fire qi retreating as a biting cold qi surged upwards. In the North Sea, which had originally already been cold, the number of glaciers increased greatly. The easternmost region of the mainland, the waters of the East Sea, was also facing a similar situation. These were all the aftereffects of boiling the East Sea, and had to be dealt with slowly. Hearing the news, Fu Enchu shook her head. Not their own territory, the flame devils really don't feel much pain stirring up trouble, leaving behind problems. At the end of the day, it is still us of the Eight Extremities world who have to deal with the aftermath. I really hope that one day we will be able to flatten the flame devil world. Yan Zhaoge laughed bitterly. In their own territory, the flame devils will probably be completely unbridled in their rampage. As for flatten the flame devil world, Yan Zhaoge lightly rubbed his temples. The time is currently still not ripe. The eruption of the underground fire of the outer East Sea, the blazing fire boiling the sea, had already caused the strength of the flame devils to soar greatly, turning the tables on them as they occupied the geographical advantage. In the flame devil world that they had originally lived in, the home ground advantage, as well as the increase in their strength, would be even more evident. Yuan Zhengfeng said, Zhaoge, the technique you used to break through the core of that fire net seems to have a suppressive effect on the flame devils? Yan Zhaoge nodded. It was a result of my own attempts to restore an ancient technique. I named it the Cold Abyss Domain. Its source lies in an expert of pre-Great Calamity times who was acclaimed alongside the Flame Devil Emperor and the Thunder Emperor, the Ice Emperor. The Ice Emperor's divine abilities were unrivaled, but the legacies that were left behind were extremely rare, scattered and fragmented, completely not forming a system, making it hard for people to witness his former glory. Yan Zhaoge extended his hands forward, one palm facing upwards, the other moving across his palm, leaving behind one mark after another. Then, his true essence condensed the water vapor into ice, gradually condensing into an icicle. However, this icicle was still only in its embryonic form. For it to be put to use, a long time of polishing and refining would be required. As he demonstrated, he explained, I attempted to combine the few words that had been passed down from ancient texts, combining them with my clan's formation legacies, barely managing to restore a bit of the Ice Emperor's ancient technique, with some principles and techniques that I had comprehended after entering the old residence of the glacial dragon Martial Saint, finally combining them into its current form. Currently, there are still many areas where it has yet to mature. In coming to the East Sea this time, I actually wanted to experiment on the Flame Devils, summarizing and perfecting this technique. Yan Zhaoge said, sadly, I didn't think that the attack of the Flame Devils this time would be so much stronger than I had expected. Therefore, I also took a risk. They passed through the Earth Peak, heading towards Broad Creed Mountain's main peak, the Heaven Rising Peak. As they walked, Yan Zhaoge said, if the technique becomes more and more perfected, its power growing stronger and stronger, with sufficient power to activate and maintain it, there might be a possibility of counterattacking the Flame Devil world. Even if we are unable to reach the heights of the Ice Emperor in the past, it is also fine. After all, the Flame Devil world also does not have a Flame Devil Emperor. Hearing his words, Yuan Zhengfeng and Fu Enchu nodded slightly. As Yan Zhaoge said this, he thought of that small crimson pagoda. If not for this thing, the Flame Devils might not have succeeded so easily. Yan Zhaoge's thoughts drifted. As he thought about it, Yan Zhaoge's thoughts suddenly turned to Lin Zhou's dying words. From the looks of it, it didn't seem like he was bluffing. To the Eight Extremities world, is there a disaster that is even more severe than the invasion of the Flame Devils this time? Yan Zhaoge raised his brows slightly. What could it be? Chapter 403. Yan Zhaoge pondered, his gaze flickering unceasingly. Suddenly, Yan Zhaoge's gaze hardened slightly. Perhaps after all these years, another great Flame Devil King is about to be born? Or is it something else? Yan Zhaoge shook his head, ceasing his thoughts as he followed Yuan Zhengfeng, Fu Enchu and the others up the mountain. Everyone's safe return made the mountain gate heave a sigh of relief. As news of the abnormalities in the earth veins of the outer East Sea spread, Yan Di, who had originally been guarding the clan, was already prepared to leave and head to the East Sea. This time, it was the flame demons who caught us unprepared. Yuan Zhengfeng sighed and said, In the future, we have to be even more vigilant against the flame demons. Yendi said, with Jade Sea City's sacred artifact having appeared, as long as they recover their vitality, the strength over at the East Sea will be equivalent to having been strengthened, being able to resist the invasion of the flame devils even more effectively. Yuan Zhengfeng said, "That's right, but from now on, we have to guard against the Sacred Sun Clan harming Jade Sea City. The Sacred Sun Clan is our enemy now, and Jade Sea City is also their old enemy. If there is a chance to take advantage of them, Old Man Huang and the others will definitely not let it go." Yendi pondered for a moment before saying, "The invasion of the flame devils this time has displayed a rather robust strength. While they were forced into retreat this time, even having slain 2 of their flame devil kings, they are still powerful. In order to prevent them from launching another large-scale attack, even if Jade Sea City has recovered its vitality, most of its attention will still have to be placed on the sea. In our confrontation with the Sacred Sun Clan, the role it can play will be limited." Hearing his words, Fu Enshu snorted. Because of the flame devils, the Sacred Sun Clan has gained yet another bargain. Fang Zhuan looked at Yen Zhaoge. "Zhaoge, have you made any progress on that Crimson Pagoda?" Yen Zhaoge answered, "As of now, I still can't tell its exact origins." Yuan Zhengfeng similarly nodded. On the way back, Yen Zhaoge had also given the Crimson Pagoda to him and Fu Enshu to peruse, but they had not gained much from it. Fang Zhuan asked, "Yeah, what I mean is it possible for the Flame Devil to produce another one next time?" Yen Zhaoge considered for a moment before saying, "The possibility is not high, because this thing should not have been forged by the Flame Devils themselves, instead having been obtained from outside. As for whether it's a gift from someone else or a fortuitous encounter from the heavens, it's hard to say." Hearing this, Fang Zhuan nodded slowly. "In that case, the situation is still good. Actually, the reason why the battle this time was so dangerous was because on one hand, the fierceness of the attacks of the Flame Devils surpassed our predictions. On the other hand, it was also because we had not thought that they would be able to shake the earth veins of our 8 extremities world, causing the East Sea to boil with fire, allowing them to turn the tables on us." Fang Zhuan asked, "I heard that the reason the Flame Devils were able to avoid our detection and sneak into the inner East Sea was also related to this treasure." Yen Zhaoge nodded solemnly. "There is at least an 80% chance that it is due to this Crimson Pagoda." Yuan Zhengfeng said, "This treasure does not seem to have been forged later on in the world, instead containing earlier heaven spirit fire. Its firepower is not apparent, having the effect of restraining it, at the same time being related to the circulation of the earth veins of our 8 extremities world. According to this old man's guess, the material used to forge this treasure should be a supreme earlier heaven fire spirit treasure from the earth veins of the 8 extremities world. But what exactly is its origin, how it was refined, and who it came from is still unknown." The Grand Elder, Elder He, now asked, "Could it be related to the Sacred Sun Clan? I mean..." She paused for a moment before saying, "Whether Zhang Purple Yang is alive or dead, where he has gone, is still a mystery even now." Yen Zhaoge, Yuan Zhengfeng and Fu Enshu shook their heads in unison. Yuan Zhengfeng answered, "We cannot be any more familiar with the martial legacies of the Sacred Sun Clan. Not mentioning their juniors, we have all seen Zhang Chao in person that year. Junior apprentice sister He, after you have seen that red pagoda for yourself later, you will understand. While the concept of this red pagoda also walks the path of fire, it is completely different from that of the Sacred Sun Clan and Zhang Chao. This old man is still not blind on this point. Unless Zhang Chao completely starts from scratch, creating a supreme martial legacy of a completely different path. That is another matter altogether." Yuan Zhengfeng looked at Yen Zhaoge. Yen Zhaoge nodded, exiting the great hall and opening his shadow-shrinking pouch, relaxing the suppression of the pillar of the divine palace. Coiled by the silhouette of a dragon, the Crimson Pagoda instantly flew out, growing with the wind. While it was rather short as compared to ordinary pagodas, it was still extremely massive as it stood at the top of the heaven-rising peak. Its power and aura were deeply retracted, such that if one were just watching from the sidelines, they would not be able to feel the profundities within. It was instead the ice-blue dragon pattern coiling around the crimson pagoda that was a little more eye-catching. Yendi smiled. I remember you saying that you swept away most of the valuable things from the old residence of the glacial dragon Martial Saint? Everyone laughed, Yen Zhaoge also laughing. Speaking of this, it is really thanks to having obtained a complete ice dragon's corpse in the old residence of the glacial dragon Martial Saint this time. Otherwise, in resisting the flame devils on the East Sea this time, there really wouldn't be much hope of breaking through their geographical advantage. Yuan Jingfeng said, the glacial dragon Martial Saint is a senior expert of our Eight Extremities world. This time, we can also be considered to have received the assistance of our predecessors in supporting the Eight Extremities world. Yen Zhaoge smacked his lips, smiling. I originally still wanted to bring back the true dragon's corpse. This thing is a treasure all over, and if it can be used effectively, it would be a great help to the overall strength of our clan. Yen Di pointed at him. Don't look like a money grubber, it's not like much has been wasted. Still, you have to cultivate more diligently. A considerable portion of the essence qi is already on you. If you want to refine and absorb it all, it will not be an easy thing. However, before you transcending mortality, you probably won't have to worry about the problem of accumulating essence qi. Hearing his words, Yen Zhaoge instantly laughed. Yuan Jingfeng and the others also laughed. The ice dragon's corpse was Yen Zhaoge's harvest, and he had the greatest priority in dealing with it. It was just that with Yen Zhaoge's current cultivation base, wanting to bring out the full value of the ice dragon's corpse without any wastage at all would be very difficult. Yen Zhaoge's cool-headedness in rejecting the temptation of hoarding it all for himself and handing it over to the clan, Yuan Jingfeng and the others all praised him greatly. Now, due to special circumstances, they also didn't mind that they couldn't hand it over. Anyway, even if they did hand it over, a considerable portion of the benefits would still fall on Yen Zhaoge. Good steel was used on the blade's edge. Whether it was Broad Creed Mountain or the other sacred grounds, they always concentrated the best resources on the most elite descendants with the greatest potential. The opportunity given to everyone was equal, but the reward would never be the same as sharing food from the same pot. And Yen Zhaoge had already long since proven himself. Yen Zhaoge patted the crimson pagoda beside him, saying to Yen Di, while its foundation is still unclear, the concept behind it is rather unique. It is extremely beneficial for martial practitioners of our generation to cultivate in it. You and the other elders might as well give it a try. Looking at Yuan Jingfeng and Fu Enshu, he smiled. Grand Master and Senior Apprentice Sant Fu can testify that those who have tried it all say it is good. Chapter 404. Hearing her words, Yen Di and the others all looked towards Yuan Jingfeng and Fu Enshu. Yuan Jingfeng smiled, nodding. The stones of other mountains can be used to improve jade. It indeed has its unique points. Fu Enshu also said, obtaining this treasure might be an unexpected surprise for our clan. Whatever their personality, whatever their aptitude, all martial practitioners who were able to walk to a higher level were more passionate about the martial Tao itself. Hearing that the Crimson Pagoda had such a use, Yen Di and the others were all interested as they all came before it. One person at a time, there would instead be no reaction if there were too many. Saying so, Yen Zhaoge retreated to the side. Yen Di first placed his palm on the Crimson Pagoda, infusing his essence within as the pagoda instantly shook slightly. After a long time, Yen Di released his hand, not speaking as a look of deep thought appeared on his face as he stood where he was. The other bigwigs of the clan came forward one after another, taking turns to touch that Crimson Pagoda. After doing so, a pondering look appeared on everyone's face as they remained silent and focused. Yen Zhaoge, Yuan Jingfeng and Fu Enshu stood by the side, looking at each other as they all smiled. After analyzing the Crimson Pagoda earlier, they had all been the same. They did not rush Yen Di and the others as they all stood where they were, waiting patiently. After a while, everyone who had been analyzing the Crimson Pagoda regained their wits. The Grand Elder, Elder Zhang, clicked his tongue in praise. It indeed has its own profundities. Perhaps the direct gains are limited, but connecting it with what we have learnt in the past, some new ideas seem to have arisen. However, it was like a flash of inspiration. Grasping it, we still have to carefully reflect on it. Beside him, Elder He directly said, "Enshu is right. It is indeed a pleasant surprise." She looked around and said, "It's always extremely difficult to make any progress. At our current cultivation level, it's extremely difficult to make any progress. It's very difficult to rely on external forces, so we can only explore and work on our own." Now, first there was that stone pillar that Zhaoga brought back from the Great Western Desert, and now there is this ice-fire pagoda. Grasping these two consecutive fortuitous encounters, for our Broad Creed Mountain as a whole, they hold extraordinary significance. It was not possible for a group of people's cultivation bases to advance by leaps and bounds at the same time. Just like what Elder He had said, it was always very difficult to take a step forward from the highest level of enlightenment, especially for transcending mortality martial grandmasters like Yen Di, Her and Elder Zhang. One more step and he would be a martial saint. Transcending mortality and entering sainthood was extremely difficult. However, it was precisely because of this that if one could make real progress, even if it was not a breakthrough to the next realm, the results would still be very impressive. After all, this was not a single person, but rather all of Broad Creed Mountain's higher echelon experts as a whole, possibly taking half a step forward together. It might seem inconspicuous, but in many cases, in a battle between experts, the slightest difference could determine victory or defeat. Originally, Broad Creed Mountain's martial grandmasters had already presided over the 6 great sacred grounds. While Yuan Jingfeng had stepped into the martial saint realm and Xian Dongping had been killed, causing Broad Creed Mountain to instantly lose 2 peak transcending mortality martial grandmasters. However, Yen Di having stepped into the peak of the 10th level of the martial grandmaster realm, it would be sufficient for Broad Creed Mountain to continue dominating the martial grandmaster realm. In the hearts of the martial practitioners of the 8 extremities world, Yen Di was treated differently. Now that he had entered the exceptional state, his opponents were no longer martial grandmasters, but martial sacred experts. After the great battle of Broad Creed Mountain, in the eyes of many, Broad Creed Mountain had the potential to regain the throne of the number 1 sacred ground. Other than Yuan Jingfeng having successfully stepped into the martial saint realm, and the Sacred Sun clan having lost the great Sun Heaven measuring ruler, there were 2 other reasons for this. One was that Yen Di had stepped into the ranks of transcending mortality martial grandmasters. The other was that Yen Zhaoga had displayed an aura that suppressed those of his age, displaying Broad Creed Mountain's superior foundation and potential. Under such circumstances, if all of Broad Creed Mountain's higher echelon experts could improve, even if it was just by half a step, the effects would be extremely obvious. As a martial saint, Yuan Jingfeng had also benefited from this, raising everyone's spirits even more. Meanwhile, the 3 transcending mortality martial grandmasters were the ones worth looking forward to the most. Everyone regained their wits, with only Yen Di and Fang Zhuan still remaining in deep thought. Seeing this, not only were they not worried, looks of joy instead appeared on their faces. After a while, Fang Zhuan, who had his eyes closed in deep thought, was the first to let out a long breath, opening his eyes. Yuan Jingfeng smiled, asking, "How is it?" Fang Zhuan said, "Just the distance of a piece of paper." Everyone laughed loudly. "Good!" After another moment, Yen Di finally opened his eyes, meeting their focused gazes as he said quietly, "I still have to think carefully." The expressions of Yuan Jingfeng and the others turned solemn, but they were not worried, instead carrying some anticipation. Right, this kind of thing depends on one's comprehension. Yuan Zhengfeng nodded slowly before saying to the others, because this pagoda cannot be comprehended by many at the same time, it can only be used one at a time. Therefore, within a short period of time, there must be a sequence of uses. This old man means to first hand it over to Yen Di, junior apprentice brother Zhang, and junior apprentice sister, he to take turns in safekeeping. Of course, Zhaoge can also use it as he pleases. Fang Zhuan and the others nodded in unison. Fang Zhuan only needed that one time just now, and that would be enough for the time being. Next, he would have to enter secluded cultivation. Yen Di said, "There should also be you, master." This was not out of courtesy. As a martial saint, if Yuan Zhengfeng could continue to improve, he would definitely be of immediate use. As they concluded their discussions, Yuan Zhengfeng looked at Yen Zhaoge, smiling. In order to resolve the great tribulation of Jade Sea City this time and assist in the birth of the Jade Sea Pill Heart Sword, Zhaoge sacrificed his internal crystal furnace. Returning to the mountain this time, hurry up and make up for it. Yen Zhaoge chuckled. I was just waiting for you to say this. Everyone laughed. Looking at his mischievous look, Yen Di shook his head exasperatedly. After laughing, Yen Di's gaze was filled with gratification and pride. It's almost time for the harvest. Hearing his words, Yen Zhaoge's eyes lit up slightly. What stage are you at? Yen Di said, mid-grade spirit artifacts are already no longer a problem. Our current target is high-grade spirit artifacts. Of course, high-grade spirit artifacts have a very high requirement on the materials used. The corners of Yen Zhaoge's mouth arched slightly. Broad Creed Mountain had never slacked off in improving and perfecting the internal crystal furnace, especially after having cleared away the hidden dangers of the decimating abyss, having developed it even more vigorously. After the Battle of Broad Creed Mountain, Yen Di had taken over the position of chief, often residing within Broad Creed Mountain, no longer leaving. Other than handling clan affairs, his attention was mainly focused on the internal crystal furnace. As Yen Zhaoge walked outside, he did not relax in his analysis of the internal crystal furnace, summarizing a large amount of experience and information before unceasingly sending it back to his father. Currently, Yen Zhaoge himself already possessed the ability to forge a large number of low-grade spirit artifacts. As long as he had sufficient materials, he could open the furnace infinitely. Meanwhile, the problem of mid-grade spirit artifacts had also been overcome. Yen Zhaoge had joked with his junior apprentice brothers and sisters that when he left the clan in the future, he would be able to overwhelm his enemies with spirit artifacts. Leaving the clan's great hall together with Yen Di, father and son walked together on the mountain path. Looking at Yen Zhaoge, Yen Di's gaze that was usually sharp and arrogant now contained a rare warmth. Another 10-year period is about to arrive, Yen Di said softly. As the chief, I am currently preoccupied with matters, and it would not be good for me to leave the mountain because of personal matters. Now that your cultivation base has gradually matured, you should make a trip to the Marsh of Illusory Sea this time. Saying thus, he handed over an object. Yen Zhaoge received it. It was a jade hairpin, a snow crane embroidered on it, simple, elegant, and leisurely. To be continued. Chapter 405. While Yen Zhaoge had never personally been to the Marsh of Illusory Sea, he had long since heard of it. That was an extremely massive marsh in the south of the lake domain, spanning the South Mountain, East Lake and West Lake of the lake domain's 6 daa. Illusions abounded within, vast and unfathomable. Those who entered within would be faced with great danger. Even martial grandmasters might not be able to return after entering, getting lost within. Even Turbid Wave Pavilion, the sacred ground that had governed the lake domain for many years, had not completely grasped that place. The earth domain that had mutated into hell, the wind domain's great western desert, the extreme northern snowy plains to the north of the mountain domain and thunder domain, the southern underground palace of the fire domain, The endless ocean beyond the sea and the marsh of illusory sea of the lake domain were collectively known as the 6 great danger grounds of the current 8 extremities world. The 10-year period that Yen Di spoke of referred to the fact that the bewildering fog and illusions in the depths of the marsh would weaken for a period of time every 10 years. During that period, it would be much safer for people to enter the marsh of illusory sea. At the same time, the miraculous phenomenon of the 10-character heavenly rainbow would appear in the depths of the marsh. The 2 rainbows did not overlap, instead going east and west, one north and one south, intersecting amidst the horizon. Yen Zhaoge received that jade hairpin from Yen Di, looking at the pattern of a snow crane on its head. Yen Di said slowly, "The appearance of the 10-character heavenly rainbow is most likely due to the distortion of space there. When space is distorted to a certain extent, a passageway may be opened, leading to other worlds. 10 years ago, when I went to the marsh of illusory sea, while I also saw the 10-character heavenly rainbow, there was no spatial passageway open there. There might not be one this time as well, but you should go take a look." Yen Zhaoge nodded, answering, "All right." Raising his head, he saw that the current Yen Di looked a little rarely seen, his expression gentle as it revealed some disappointment. Yen Zhaoge was well aware that this originated from his mother, Yen Di's wife, Xue Chuqing. Actually, in Yen Zhaoge's memories, his impression of his mother was very thin, mostly coming from the descriptions of others. In his innate impression, his mother was a solitary practitioner, but her martial foundation was rather extraordinary, not inferior to the direct lineage of the 6 great sacred grounds in the slightest, also possessing traces of legacies from before the great calamity. Back then, when he had first appeared in the world, many people had mistaken him for the successor of the painting saint, Old Man Mo. Afterwards, the Yen couple and the other Broad Creed mountain martial practitioners had traversed the East Sea, passing by Verdant Pill Island to pay a visit to Old Man Mo. Verdant Pill Island had explicitly denied it. Only then had it been confirmed that Xue Chuqing was not of Verdant Pill Island's lineage. Instead, as she had said, she had obtained a martial legacy from before the great calamity, forming her own style. However, 20 years ago, when Yen Zhaoge was still young, Xue Chuqing had already disappeared without a trace. There were people who witnessed her vanishing into the swamp of illusory sea's 10-character heavenly rainbow that occurred once every 10 years. Glancing at Yen Di, Yen Zhaoge's lips moved, but he did not speak. Yen Di smiled. "I know what you are thinking about. Still, your mother did not perish in the marsh of illusory sea, nor was she lost there. This is not self-consolation." Yen Zhaoge curiously asked, "Oh? What others don't know is that before Chuqing left, she told me that we might meet again in the future." Yen Di said, "She did not say it in detail, so I did not ask about it. Still, some things that I already know allow me to guess some things. Your mother only appeared in the world 30 years ago. While she has always said that she had always been living in seclusion with her master, only coming out after her master had passed away, her past 30 years ago was a complete blank." Yen Di said softly, "It was as if she had never existed in this world." Yen Zhaoge's gaze flickered. In other words, Mother was active in the 8 extremities world for a total of 10 years? It just so happens to be the period during which the 10-character heavenly rainbow appears. You suspect that Mother is not of the 8 extremities world at all, instead hailing from another world? Yen Di smiled lightly. "This is not a suspicion, but something that can be confirmed." Chuqing seemed to have some misgivings, never saying it clearly. Thus, I also did not ask her. Still, the two of us had a tacit understanding, not saying it out loud. It's just that when she disappeared once more in the 10-character heavenly rainbow afterwards, whether she returned to the world she was born in or somewhere else, I am still uncertain. Therefore, I say that it is a guess. Yen Di's gaze fell on the jade hairpin. When she first disappeared, I searched for a long time in the marsh of illusory sea, not finding any traces of her. I believed that she should not have perished within. then the greatest possibility is that it is indeed related to the 10-character heavenly rainbow. Therefore, every 10 years I go there to investigate. Yan Zhaoge sighed, sadly. The dimensional passageway there does not seem to be stable. Yan Di said, if it really is as stable as that passageway leading to the Flame Devil world on the outer East Sea, it might not be a good thing for the Eight Extremities world. After all, we do not know what the situation on the other side is like. Yan Zhaoge nodded. Mother's martial arts are not inferior to those of the Eight Extremities world's 6 great sacred grounds. This means that the development of the martial Tao there is no weaker than here at the very least. Yan Di looked over. Let me correct a misconception of yours. The true profundities of Chuqing's martial arts are even above our clan's clear qi profound art and 3 supreme arts. Hearing his words, Yan Zhaoge's pupils dilated slightly as many thoughts instantly flashed through his mind. Oh? This is truly out of my expectations. Yan Di said, it's good that you are aware of this matter. Before today, other than me, only your Grand Master was aware of it. Even eldest apprentice brother and the others did not know about it. While your mother and I did not pass on the martial arts that the other cultivated in, we often interacted and verified them. If I am not wrong, Chuqing's trump card seems to be some supreme martial art from before the Great Calamity that has been passed down in its entirety. Before the Great Calamity, the martial Tao had experienced a long period of development, its civilization brilliant and glorious. All sorts of supreme martial arts had been unceasingly improved and perfected, the old bringing forth the new as they had attained an extremely high peak. After the Great Calamity, most of the martial civilization had been lost. The current martial civilization of the Eight Extremities world had begun anew from the foundation of excavating the legacies left behind by their predecessors, still being in the early stages of development. While it had its own unique areas, it was still lacking as compared to the peak martial arts of before the Great Calamity. This was not necessarily because the martial practitioners of after the Great Calamity were lacking, but because of the lack of accumulation of legacies and time. Looking at the jade hairpin in his palm, Yan Zhaoge muttered to himself, a supreme martial art that has been passed down in its entirety? In the Eight Extremities world, it really is rarely seen. After pondering for a while, Yan Zhaoge kept the jade hairpin in his hand, asking, Father, since the 10-character heavenly rainbow appears every 10 years, that passageway should have opened more than once or twice, right? Other than Mother, is there anyone else like this? Or perhaps in the Eight Extremities world, did someone leave and go to the other side? Whether there are others, that is something that cannot be confirmed, Yan Di answered. As for who went to the other side, from ancient times till now, there have been many people who have gone missing in the marsh of Illusory Sea every year. Amongst them, there might be people who have left the Eight Extremities world, but there shouldn't be anyone who has returned after leaving. Yan Zhaoge nodded. Yan Di said, there is still some time before the 10-character heavenly rainbow appears. You should make some preparations, setting off when the time is nearing. Raising his head, Yan Zhaoge saw Yan Di standing on the mountain ridge, his hands behind his back as he gazed towards the southeast, in the direction of the lake domain, slight ripples seemingly appearing within his gaze. To be continued. Chapter 406. Yan Zhaoge's impression of his mother, Xue Chuqing, was extremely faint. Therefore, he was still rather calm inside. Still, seeing Yan Di's rare expression of disappointment, Yan Zhaoge felt a little emotional for a time. Seeing his father like he was looking at his wife like she was a rock, Yan Zhaoge was silent for a moment before a sneaky smile suddenly appeared on his face as he went over and asked, Father, between you and Mother, who is stronger? Hearing his words, Yan Di instantly did not know whether to laugh or to cry. This child, this is what you are thinking about? That year, your fame even surpassed Mother's. Still, hearing you speak of it today, I know that Mother's martial legacy is even more outstanding, having always been concealed deeply. Of course I'm curious. Yan Zhaoge said eloquently, Perhaps mother left you some face in front of outsiders back then? Yan Di pointed at Yan Zhaoge, shaking his head. You, Yan Zhaoge chuckled, asking, tell me. Yan Di first laughed before he recalled very earnestly, having never fought to the death, I cannot be completely certain. Still, I should have been stronger. Still, he narrowed his eyes, Chu Qing should be stronger than second apprentice brother and Huang Su. In terms of precise control over her own strength, Chu Qing is the most outstanding person I have ever seen. Hearing his words, Yan Zhaoge instantly smiled. More outstanding than you? Yan Di answered candidly, in this aspect, she is stronger than me. If we say that a portion of our strength is a portion of our effect, a portion of Chu Qing's strength is more than a portion of her effect. This has nothing to do with the martial arts she cultivates in. Instead, it is more like her talent. Yan Zhaoge asked, speaking of talent, how is Han Long? After Shi Tai had passed away, Ing Longtu had been the last to enter the clan amongst his disciples. He was also the youngest, having yet to leave his tutelage. After discussing it, the bigwigs of Broad Creed Mountain had finally decided to hand Ing Longtu over to Yan Di for guidance. However, in terms of the clan's lineage, Ing Longtu was still of Shi Tai's lineage, with Yan Di being his successor. Actually, when Yan Zhaoge had first picked up Ing Longtu that year, he had already felt that the most suitable master for him was not his eldest apprentice uncle Shi Tai, but his father Yan Di. While Han Long was simple in mind, he was clear and agile in his comprehension of the martial Tao. He learnt everything very quickly, also being able to master it thoroughly. Others dabbled too much, and might bite off more than they could chew. But when it came to Han Long he was proficient in everything. Moreover, they could help each other out and enlighten each other. In other words, besides having a different temperament, Han Long was actually more suited to follow the path of his father Yan Di or his second apprentice uncle Fang Zhuan in cultivating martial arts. However, of Yan Di and Fang Zhuan, the former didn't like to accept disciples. Other than the nameless Ah Hu, he only had two direct disciples. One was his only son, Yan Zhaoge, and the other was his senior apprentice brother and good friend, Feng Qi's son, Feng Moyang. Moreover, part of the reason why he accepted Feng Moyang as his direct disciple was because of his talent in alchemy. The latter, on the other hand, was in charge of the administrator's hall and had many matters to attend to. After Lu Wen, he no longer accepted disciples. Of course, Shi Tai was also very good at teaching disciples, especially since he would not use himself as a model to teach his disciples. Although Xue Fei was the same as him, only specializing in a single martial art, he taught Ing Longtu a different path, laying down an extremely good foundation. Ing Longtu being taught by Yan Di now was not inconvenient at all. Yan Di also did his utmost to nurture the descendant left behind by his eldest apprentice brother. Hearing Yan Zhaoge ask about Han Long, Yan Di smiled. You'll know when you see him. Yan Zhaoge blinked. It looks like it's worth looking forward to. After smiling, Yan Zhaoge asked solemnly, Father, you've all seen the people's senior apprentice Uncle Feng and the others brought back to the mountain, right? Yan Di's expression turned solemn as well. I've seen them, but never would I have thought that there would be such a miraculous thing. Yan Zhaoge was naturally referring to that Ouyang Qi who was extremely similar to Sikong Qing, as well as Chong Ning who had already been slain by Sikong Qing. Ouyang Qi aside, Chong Ning's corpse had also been temporarily taken care of by Yan Zhaoge with a secret technique before being sealed up and handed over to Feng Qi and Feng Moyang to bring back to Broad Creed Mountain before the Great Battle of the East Sea this time. Yan Di and the others had long since seen them, feeling that it was unexpected as they clicked their tongues in wonder. Returning to the mountain this time, Junior Apprentice Ni Sikong, we will also have to inspect him once more. A pondering look appeared on Yan Di's face. He feels that he is not simple at all. Yan Zhaoge nodded slightly in agreement. Father and son then chatted about Yan Zhaoge's experiences in the outside world this time. The praise within Yendi's gaze as he looked at Yen Zhaoge grew denser and denser. Still, it was instead buried deep within his eyes, no longer being revealed as he instead pointed out the flaws and inadequacies of Yen Zhaoge's trip this time. This was the nature of fathers. The more satisfied they were with their children, the less they would praise them verbally. Instead, they hoped that their children would be more outstanding and perfect. After this, Yen Di still had to ask Sikong Qing some questions as well as deal with other matters of the clan. After separating from him, Yen Zhaoge leisurely strolled along the mountain path. After parting with Yen Di, Yen Zhaoge's expression gradually turned solemn. There was still some time before the Marsh of Illusory Sea's illusory realm would weaken and the 10-character Heavenly Rainbow would appear. Yen Zhaoge was not in a rush to leave as he could rest and recuperate on the mountain. Still, Yendi's words had revealed some information which verified many of Yen Zhaoge's earlier guesses. A great apocalypse had caused the original world to shatter. Whether it was the Eight Extremities world or the Flame Devil world, they were both a part of it. And now, it was very likely that other worlds existed, which proved this point. At the same time, there was also Sikong Qing's unique situation. The world on the other side of the 10-character Heavenly Rainbow should also be one of the fragments of a complete world of pre-Great Calamity times? Countless thoughts flashed through Yen Zhaoge's mind. Actually, what he was most concerned about was whether the martial Tao that his mother cultivated in was one of the legacies of pre-Great Calamity times that had been completely preserved, then discovered by a fortuitous coincidence later on, or had it been passed down by a survivor of the Great Calamity. Observing the pillar of the Divine Palace in the Great Western Desert and witnessing that mysterious woman related to the extreme Yin crown, Yen Zhaoge had already felt that there were survivors of the Great Calamity. After so many years had passed, perhaps the survivors themselves had already passed away. However, could there be some legacies that had not been lost, having been passed down all this time? Yen Zhaoge narrowed his eyes, a dim light flickering within them. If such people really exist, do they know what exactly caused that great calamity? Strolling along the mountain path alone, Yen Zhaoge suddenly laughed. Pretty interesting. Knowing that there were heavens beyond heavens, Yen Zhaoge did not panic. Instead, he felt as if his heart had been broadened, as if he had been enlightened. Raising his head and gazing into the distance, outside of Broad Creed mountain range, the morning sun appeared over the horizon. Facing the sunlight, Yen Zhaoge stretched lazily, raising his feet once more as he strode forward. To be continued. Chapter 407. Yen Zhaoge first followed Yen Di's instructions, directly retrieving the internal crystal furnace that Yen Di had used earlier. Afterwards, Yen Di would imitate it himself, forging a brand new one. Carefully analyzing this internal crystal furnace, Yen Zhaoge discovered that its functions were already getting closer and closer to the internal crystal furnace of before the Great Calamity in his memories. Of course, it was still lacking, but it was already gradually starting to look somewhat similar. In the hands of martial grandmasters, as long as there were sufficient materials, they would already be able to mass-produce mid-grade spirit artifacts. If it could be improved further, mass production of high-grade spirit artifacts would also be something that could be looked forward to. Of course, limited by the craftsmanship of the internal crystal furnace and its materials, there were still many difficulties for it to be overcome. However, Yen Zhaoge was already extremely satisfied with the current situation. After all, sacred artifacts were hard to come by, especially when the materials they were made of were rare and expensive. It could be temporarily put aside. When high-grade spirit artifacts could be mass-produced, with sufficient materials, Broad Creed Mountain's strength would skyrocket. The invasion of the Flame Devils caused the overall situation of the Eight Extremities world to change somewhat. To the alliance of Broad Creed Mountain, Jade Sea City and Infinite Boundless Mountain, the birth of the Jade Sea Pill Heart Sword had caused their overall strength to rise, their advantage over the Thunderfire Alliance of the Sacred Sun Clan and the Heavenly Thunder Hall becoming even more obvious. However, Jade Sea City had met with a great calamity, its lord, the Jade Sea Marshal Saint Song Wuliang, having been heavily injured and needing to recuperate, its guardian Grand Formation, the Jade Sea Limitless Grand Formation, having been completely shattered and needing to be set up anew. During this period of time, the overall strength of the alliance of Broad Creed Mountain's 3 clans had temporarily fallen into a low ebb. It was very hard to imagine that the Sacred Sun Clan and the Heavenly Thunder Hall would not make use of this chance to seize the initiative. After all, after Jade Sea City had recovered, the disadvantage of their 2 clans would be even more obvious, even dangerous. During this period of time when Jade Sea City was recuperating, Broad Creed Mountain and Infinite Boundless Mountain would also need to be more vigilant. With the improvement of the internal crystal furnace, combined with the assistance of the Pillar of the Divine Palace and the Crimson Tower, Broad Creed Mountain's accumulated strength was growing more and more robust. It was still that old adage, either weaken the opponent or improve oneself. Yen Zhaoge's schemes in the extreme northern snowy plains, or his super long-distance profound boundless mountain, was the former. Refining the heaven-returning divine pill to help Yuan Jingfeng recover from his injuries and achieve a breakthrough, studying the internal crystal furnace, and exploring the ruins of the glacial dragon Marshal Saint's old residence were all the latter. Unceasingly accumulating, Broad Creed Mountain now truly had the momentum to return to being the #1 sacred ground of the 8 Extremities world. If no major accidents occurred and the current situation continued to develop, Broad Creed Mountain's advantage would only grow greater and greater until it completely left the Sacred Sun Clan and the other powers in the dust. However, his opponent was not a dead person, nor was he a saint. He would not ignore the situation in front of him. Therefore, what followed next was the most crucial period. Stroking the internal crystal furnace before him with his finger, Yen Zhaoge lightly patted its body, its lid opening, before placing a dark green bamboo branch that flickered with a purple light within. Back then, he had invested many treasures and several spirit weapons in hopes of forging a unique treasure that belonged to him. Now, he had already seen the initial form. In the extreme north ice plains, at the bottom of the East Sea, he had tested his skills. At the same time as it was being used, Yen Zhaoge was also unceasingly experimenting and receiving feedback so as to facilitate his subsequent refinement. The bamboo branch entered the internal crystal furnace. After pondering for a moment, Yen Zhaoge threw the radiant sun wheel and the flying thunder saber within. 2 streaks of light shot out from the mouth of the furnace, and the internal crystal furnace began to rumble and shake. Many of the supreme treasures of the Earth domain that he had obtained from Xian Dongping, as well as many treasures that he had obtained from the old residence of the glacial dragon Marshal Saint this time, were also thrown within. Streams of mist rose within the internal crystal furnace, the light of treasures flickering unceasingly, shocking people's hearts. Yen Zhaoge's hands pressed down on the 2 halves of the furnace, his fist intent and true essence stabilizing the internal crystal furnace together as he controlled it to circulate according to his will. After a long time, Yen Zhaoge patted the furnace, its lid closing. The internal crystal furnace's circulation seemed to have stabilized, but it still emitted rumbling sounds from time to time as it shook unceasingly. Yen Zhaoge smiled. Following this, it would be time for the tempering of the furnace. Keeping the internal crystal furnace, Yen Zhaoge left his room, walking amongst the mountains. Next, he did not first visit Feng Yunxing, Ing Long Tu and the others, instead going somewhere else. That had originally been the residence of his eldest apprentice uncle, Shi Tai. Arriving at the door, Yen Zhaoge focused his attention and listened carefully, vaguely hearing a human voice resound. The great heaven-earth sword forms the extreme complexity within the extreme simplicity, while the Big Dipper sword conceals the extreme simplicity within the extreme complexity. While the two seem to walk different extremes, there are actually similarities between them. The great Daos of this world, when reached a profound level, all have the profundities of different paths leading to the same destination. Think about it carefully. Hearing his words, Yan Zhaoge smiled slightly. That was Xue Fei's voice. Xue Fei did not live here, having come here to impart lessons to another person. Logically speaking, it should be the disciple going to the master's place, and not the master coming to the disciple's residence. However, Xue Fei was clearly more than happy to come here himself. Yan Zhaoge did not conceal his movements. As he neared, Xue Fei immediately sensed him, halting his lesson as he asked loudly, "Is it junior apprentice brother Yan?" "It's me. I'm not disturbing you, am I?" Yan Zhaoge smiled as he asked. The great door before him moved on its own, opening for Yan Zhaoge. Looking within, Yan Zhaoge saw Xue Fei currently standing on the empty ground in the middle of the courtyard, a youth standing beside him. That youth was around 10 years of age, his features somewhat similar to Shi Tai and Shi Songtao, just that the shape of his face was different as it was not squarish, his chin appearing slightly pointy. Seeing Yan Zhaoge, he instantly smiled. "Little senior apprentice Uncle Yan." The youth was precisely Shi Tai's grandson, Shi Songtao's son, Shi Jun. His features resembled his father's greatly, while the shape of his face was that of his mother, Ying Yuzhen. "How do you feel? Do you still feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Yan Zhaoge walked in, appraising Shi Jun all over as he felt extremely emotional. In his conversation with his father Yan Di just now, Yan Di had specifically mentioned Shi Jun. Yan Di was extremely satisfied with Yan Zhaoge's trip to the extreme northern snowy plains, of which he was the most satisfied with Shi Jun and his mother, having regained hope of living. Regarding this, Yan Zhaoge also felt rather gratified. Shi Jun shook his head. "I'm very good, just that mother still hasn't woken up." Yan Zhaoge patted Shi Jun's shoulder lightly. "Rest easy, the heavens help the worthy." Shi Jun nodded silently. Yan Zhaoge swiveled his head to look at Su Fei, extending his right hand and clenching it into a fist. Su Fei did the same, their fists clashing lightly in midair, everything unspoken. Without needing Yan Zhaoge to ask, Su Fei sent over via sound transmission, "Jun is precocious." After waking up, the speed at which his mind matured was even faster than expected, resembling a little adult. Yan Zhaoge nodded. "I can see that." Su Fei said, "I've already told him all that I can." Yan Zhaoge glanced at Shi Jun from the corner of his eye. "He still looks pretty good." "He just looks pretty good." Su Fei pressed his lips together. "Right now, he is actually very sensitive. Precocious is not a bad thing, but the fate of Master's family is too deeply entangled, causing him to easily overthink things. Right now it is because he has always been thinking about one thing in his heart, and that is his mother." Chapter 408. Hearing Su Fei's words, Yan Zhaoge carefully observed Shi Jun. Although the youth in front of him was cheerful, there was a hint of vulnerability and sensitivity in the depths of his eyes, as well as restlessness and uneasiness. It looked like a little hedgehog that was ready to raise its spikes to protect itself at any time. While he appeared cheerful and mature in front of people, he was closer to like Yan Zhaoge and Su Fei. He was actually still a child inside. Yan Zhaoge pondered for a moment before sending a sound transmission to Xue Fei. From what I remember, Shi Jun's personality is also that of the more impatient type. Just as senior brother Su said, most of his attention is on sister-in-law Yuzhen, forcing himself to be mature and calm. However, he still cares about elder brother Shi's matters. Although he can understand eldest uncle's difficulties, he is very sensitive because of elder brother Shi. He cares a lot about what others think of him. Yan Zhaoge said slowly. He may be rather eager to prove himself, rather anxious about it. Xue Fei nodded and said, "That's right, but as a child, I can't ask more of him." Yan Zhaoge sighed emotionally. "That's right. It's really all thanks to you, senior apprentice brother Su. For him to be able to understand what happened back then, to be able to empathize with eldest apprentice uncle is indeed not easy at all." Su Fei said, "There's no need to worry about it. I will still do my best in his future path." Having the motivation to improve is a good thing, but going too far is as bad as not going far enough, Yan Zhaoge said. If the blade is too sharp, you might accidentally cut your own hand. I do need senior brother Su's help in the future. Saying thus, Yan Zhaoge smiled slightly. Still, having already passed the most difficult stage, the rest will definitely not stump you. He turned to look at Shi Jun, however. Little Jun-er's talent for martial arts is very good. I feel that he's even better than senior brother Shi. Xue Fei's gaze also became gentler. He smiled and said, "Yes, he is better than me and brother Shi. I believe that he will surpass his master." Yan Zhaoge laughed, wanting to surpass the master, not just relying on talent alone. Xue Fei also laughed. "Are you talking about yourself?" Yan Zhaoge smiled and shook his head. Thinking of something, Su Fei retracted his smile and asked, "Zhaoge, is there a chance with sister-in-law Yuzhen?" "Yes, that still depends." Yan Zhaoge sighed. Sister-in-law Yuzhen's situation is much worse than little Shi-er's. Although my condition is much better after the trip to the northern lands, it is still very difficult for me to completely recover and wake up. While of her is much better after the trip to the northern domain, she of the mountain realm, there are still many difficulties. After pausing for a moment, Yan Zhaoge continued, "After some time, I intend to make a trip to the marsh of illusory sea of the lake domain." Yan Zhai said, "I said of Fei. I said of him, I you, of Yuzhen of you of me. Su Zai Fei of the Long, he Su. I've heard a little about the reputation of the empty spirit rain mist, but it seems that this treasure can't be brought out of the marsh of illusory sea, or it will lose its effect." "Tian of Yen of Fei," said Yang of Fei of him as Fei Tian Yen as. "Of Fei's Su of." Xue Fei said, "I'll bring little Shi Jun and go with you." Yan Zhaoge stroked his lower chin. "While we are about to reach the period of weakness that occurs once every 10 years, that place is still the marsh of illusory sea. Senior apprentice brother Su, you are naturally fine, but if it's little Jun..." Xue Fei glanced at Shi Jun. "The ice coffin containing sister-in-law Yuzhen's body is currently under his personal care. It is stored in his shadow shrinking pouch, not willing to leave him for even a moment." Yan Zhaoge shrugged. "Ask him if he would be willing to remain within the shadow shrinking pouch for a long period of time, being brought along by us." Shi Jun was naturally more than happy to hear that it was to treat his mother's injuries. Forget about letting him stay in the shadow shrinking pouch for a long time. Even if he was asked to return to sleep in the ice coffin once more, he would also be extremely willing. Looking at Shi Jun, whose face was filled with anticipation, Yan Zhaoge also sighed slightly within his heart, able to understand the emotions of the youth before him. After taking his leave of Su Fei and Shi Jun, Yan Zhaoge walked amidst the forest. After pondering for a moment, he headed in the direction of the back mountain. Arriving in the vicinity of the waterfall where Feng Yunxing usually cultivated, Yan Zhaoge focused his attention and listened carefully. While there was the rumbling sound of water, with Yan Zhaoge's current hearing ability, he was still able to clearly distinguish that there was currently more than just a single person cultivating within the waterfall. Exiting the forest, gazing into the distance, Yan Zhaoge saw that beneath the waterfall, other than Feng Yunxing, there were 2 other people. One was Ying Longtu, the other a girl. While her appearance was inferior to Feng Yunxing's, she could still be considered pretty. Yan Zhaoge's gaze first fell on Ying Longtu, instantly feeling his eyes light up. Even with the interference of the sound of the waterfall, Yan Zhaoge was still able to hear the sound of blood flowing smoothly within Ying Longtu's body, as though it was heavy as lead mercury. This youth before him, who still had a childish look on his face, had shockingly already stepped into the early outer aura martial scholar realm at this moment, also having completed the second cleansing of his marrows. Such a speed of advancement could really be described as shocking. Gazing carefully over, Yen Zhaoge saw Ing Longtu standing stably beneath the waterfall, allowing the violent water currents to wash over his body as they descended from the heavens. His every move and stance neither fast nor slow, clear and forceful. The usually rather ignorant Han Long currently had a serious and focused expression on his face, his gaze actually seeming to overflow with spiritual qi. Beside him was the calm-looking Feng Yunxing. Feng Yunxing was currently not practicing her martial arts as she just sat quietly in the meditative position, completely ignoring the waterfall descending from the sky. Yen Zhaoge had heard that Ing Longtu's current cultivation was often based on Feng Yunxing as a benchmark. However much Feng Yunxing cultivated, Han Long followed suit. As Feng Yunxing did not stop to rest, Han Long also did not stop, completely not caring whether he could bear it or not. Yen Zhaoge smiled slightly, swiveling his head to look in another direction. The girl there was the maiden of extreme in that broad Creed mountain had discovered in the East Sea, Yin Luhua. She had currently also formally entered Fu Enshu's tutelage, becoming the junior apprentice sister of Feng Yunxing, Sikong Qing and the others. Having been sent back to Broad Creed Mountain earlier, as Yen Zhaoge knew, because Fu Enshu had previously been at the East Sea, much of the burden of teaching Yin Luhua had fallen onto Feng Yunxing's shoulders. Having resigned from her position as the East Sea's first seat elder this time and returned to Broad Creed Mountain, Fu Enshu could instead focus on nurturing them. Yen Zhaoge did not utter a sound as he crossed his arms before his chest, just silently looking at the three beneath the waterfall just like that. As compared to Feng Yunxing and Han Long-er's composure, Yin Luhua was clearly having a hard time holding on. Her cultivation base was not as high as the other two's. It was normal for her to be like this. Yen Zhaoge just watched calmly. After a while, Yin Luhua finally seemed unable to hold on any longer as she rushed out from beneath the waterfall, landing within the pool of water. She floated up from within the pool, circulating her qi to dry her clothes before swiveling her head to look at Feng Yunxing and Ing Longtu with a rather complicated expression on her face. Seeing her movements, Yen Zhaoge carefully appraised her a few times. Feeling the state of her body, he gradually came to an understanding as he could not help but raise his brows lightly. To be continued. Chapter 409. Looking at Yin Luhua, Yen Zhaoge raised his brows slightly, but did not speak. Meanwhile, Feng Yunxing's voice resounded through the rumbling sounds of the water. Junior apprentice Sister Yin, if you could persevere a little longer, the effects would be better. Hearing her words, Yin Luhua felt slightly aggrieved, but I really can't persevere any longer. Senior apprentice Sister Feng, did you really go through it like this that year? Feng Yunxing said frankly, when I entered the clan that year, I had already refined qi into Aura-qi, reaching the martial scholar realm. However, the amount of training and intensity that I arranged for you were all lowered to a level that a body refinement martial practitioner could get used to. Yin Luhua pursed her lips, therefore, you see, you also didn't do such training when you were in the body refinement realm. Senior apprentice Sister Feng, no body refinement martial practitioner would be able to bear it. Feng Yunxing sighed. If you really can't persevere any longer, I won't force you. It's just that you started off rather late in the first place. If you want to catch up to the others, you will have to put in more effort. However, you always say that you are completely unable to bear it now. The intensity of your training has been lowered time and time again. Compared to me at the same cultivation level, you are actually not even at 80%. A doubtful look appeared in Yin Luhua's eyes, but she did not retort as she lowered her head. Feng Yunxing said, I won't force you. I've lowered the standard intensity for you. But now that Master has returned to the mountain, she might not agree to this. The intensity of your cultivation will be raised again. It's good that you're mentally prepared. Hearing her words, Yin Luhua's face instantly turned bitter. Hugging her knees as she sat by the side of the pool, she said vexedly, I'm already working much harder than the others of the clan. Amongst those of the same cultivation level, I spend the longest time cultivating every day, having been given the most homework, even double that of most others. Feng Yunxing said mildly, the resources and various privileges that we enjoy of the clan are also much more than the others. In terms of talent in the martial Tao, we are more than double that of the others of the clan. Neither you nor I are junior apprentice brother Ing Ah. Yin Liuhua's expression stiffened slightly. She opened her mouth, wanting to speak, yet no sound came out. Beneath the waterfall, Feng Yunxing stood up. As soon as I entered the clan and put on the white clothes, I have already reserved the black-bordered blue robes. It won't be long before I truly wear them. How many people in the entire sect can receive such treatment? As she said this, she walked out from beneath the waterfall, coming to Yin Liuhua's side. Since we have obtained more than ordinary people, we naturally have to pay more in certain areas. We are maidens of extreme Yin, and the sect has high hopes for us. Yin Liuhua lowered her head, letting out a soft amen as she did not speak. Feng Yunxing looked at her, not knowing if she had heard what she had said. She shook her head slightly and didn't say anything more. The black longsword was unsheathed and drew a perfect arc in the air before it steadily hovered in front of Feng Yunxing. Feng Yunxing did not make any other movements. She just raised her saber and extended her arm, maintaining this posture. Her entire person was like a statue, not moving at all. From afar, Yan Zhaoge could see that Feng Yunxing's actions were not ordinary at all. The sharp saber intent was contained but not released, as if it was hidden in a scabbard, but it was still extraordinary. Amidst that saber, there was the fierceness of the sacred Sun Clan's west tilting heaven incinerating saber, the great sun descending in the west, the golden crow incinerating the wild, as well as the boundless, unparalleled sharpness of Broad Creed Mountain's chaotic elements uniting saber, cleaving through space and shattering it. What caused one to have a whole new level of respect was that Feng Yunxing's saber, at the same time encompassing everything, also possessed a unique style. Her saber intent resembled a dragon soaring to the 9 heavens, swallowing the heavens and devouring the sun, vaguely having the aura of forming a school of its own. To a martial practitioner, this was actually what was truly valued. It was like how the immeasurable heavenly saber in Yendi's hands was different from others, the Vajra body in Shurtai's hands was unprecedented, and Yuan Zhengfeng and the 2 grand elders, Elder He and Elder Zhang, all knew the heavenly broad creed palm, but Yuan Zhengfeng was able to suppress 2 of their palms with a single palm. When a martial practitioner became a martial grandmaster and cultivated in their own true martial soul, even if it was the same martial art, they would more or less be different from others. This was because this involved their own understanding and knowledge of the martial Tao. While still in the martial scholar realm, Feng Yunxing already possessed a unique style. This was an extremely rare thing. After watching quietly for a moment, Yan Zhaoge appeared. Seeing Yan Zhaoge, Feng Yunxing smiled slightly, not keeping her saber as she still maintained her original posture. Seeing this, Yan Zhaoge also smiled. Beneath the waterfall, Han Long-er let out a cheer as he suddenly shot out of the waterfall, resembling a true dragon leaving the water as he arrived before Yan Zhaoge. You've advanced very quickly. It looks like you've put in quite a bit of effort, Yan Zhaoge smiled as he patted Ing Longtu's shoulder. Having received Yan Zhaoge's praise, the youth was instantly overjoyed to the point of being unable to conceal his smile. Seeing Yan Zhaoge arrive, Yin Liuhua hurriedly stood up as well, her gaze somewhat flustered and distressed as she wondered if her earlier conversation with Feng Yunxing had fallen into Yan Zhaoge's ears. Looking at Yin Liuhua, Yan Zhaoge smiled. Junior apprentice Sister Yin, are you used to living on Broad Creed Mountain? Yin Liuhua calmed herself, answering, everything is fine on the mountain. The seniors of the clan as well as my fellow disciples all treat me extremely well. Yan Zhaoge nodded. He had indeed heard of this matter before. Yin Liuhua had the feeling of being somewhat sociable as her relations with others were still pretty good. In the martial Tao, proper methods are important. You don't necessarily have to squeeze out your potential, cultivating to the limit every time. Yen Zhaoge said mildly, however, the situation of you maidens of extreme Yin cultivating in the extreme Yin scripture is rather special. Squeezing yourself to the limit, after your chi meridians and extreme Yin power have both been depleted and regenerated, the effects of growth can be seen. While it is only a sliver each time, with the foundation being firm and the unceasing cycle of this, many a little makes a mickle, many grains of sand forming a tower, accumulating over a long period of time, it will be rather impressive. This principle should have been mentioned when I imparted you the extreme Yin scripture, right? Hearing his words, Yin Liuhua's gaze flickered slightly. I did. Yen Zhaoge appraised Yin Luhua all over. I see that you, junior apprentice Sister Yin, have not pushed yourself to the limit. Is there some special situation today? Yin Luhua sucked in a deep breath, saying, No, I still haven't finished my homework for today. I will continue later. Yen Zhaoge nodded slightly. I won't disturb you then. You can continue. Senior apprentice Sister Feng is currently cultivating. After glancing at Feng Yunxing, Yin Luhua asked Yen Zhaoge, Senior apprentice Brother Yen, there are some questions in the martial Tao that I would like to consult you on. I wonder if that's possible? Yen Zhaoge said, Feel free to speak. Then let's not disturb Senior apprentice Sister Feng. Yin Luhua led Yen Zhaoge to the side, asking him some questions as they walked. These were indeed the obstacles that some martial artists faced in their attempt to break through to the martial scholar realm. As Yen Zhaoge answered them one by one, Yin Luhua nodded repeatedly as she felt as though she had suddenly seen the light. While it was the same principle, as Yen Zhaoge explained it, she felt that it was much more thorough and easy to understand than the seniors of the clan. Yin Luhua glanced back at Feng Yunxing before swiveling her head to look at Yen Zhaoge, saying in a low tone, Senior apprentice Brother Yen, I also understand the significance of being a maiden of extreme Yin now. However, do I really have hope?